Chapter 33. Half a day later, Qin arrived at the entrance of the Eastern Mountain sect. The tall jade memorial arch had been smashed to pieces and the majestic words on it had long since disappeared. Black smoke billowed everywhere and the entire area was in shambles. The foundation of a sect that had existed for over 1,000 years had been completely destroyed. Qin thought of Lang Tu's grave, but the entire pill disposal department had collapsed. He could only stare at it silently. Naturally, he wouldn't be able to find Ningling. Just as he was about to leave, a mournful cry echoed in his ears. A pheasant with half of its feathers burned off, exposing its butt, flapped its wings and flew towards him. Gwaw! 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 For better or worse, Qin understood the chicken's meaning. This was roughly what it meant. This overlord enjoyed endless glory and endless happiness with women. I originally wanted to live in seclusion and not care about the affairs of the world, but who would have thought that a great calamity would descend upon my home and harm my loved ones? This overlord is filled with grief and has decided to leave this place of sorrow with you. In the future, I will definitely take revenge for this blood feud. If you do your best to help this overlord, then once this overlord rises, I will not mistreat you. These words were sonorous and forceful, filled with a domineering aura. But when combined with its current appearance and actions, it was laughable to the extreme. That's right, the only one with such explosive amusing attributes and who felt so good about themselves was our chicken overlord. Qin lightly said, "You and I can be considered fated. If you are willing, then follow me from now on." The chicken overlord leapt up. It was difficult for it to fly with only half its body covered in feathers. It landed on Qin shoulder and grabbed him with its claws. Although it was clearly relieved, it still put on a proud and arrogant attitude. Qin didn't bother with it. He took a step forward and flew away. Although he wasn't too worried about his safety, it was always better to be cautious. However, he didn't expect that before he left the entrance, he would run into over a dozen cultivators, several of whom he was familiar with. Tao Jia was pleasantly surprised. Junior apprentice brother Qin Yu. That's right, I heard that you went home to visit your family. It was because of this that you were able to avoid this calamity, otherwise I fear. He looked at the devastated entrance of the Eastern Mountain sect and his eyes turned red. He choked on his words, unable to continue. Several people around him had sad expressions. They should also be disciples of the Eastern Mountain sect. Su Wade glanced at Qin, his dark eyes incomparably empty. There was no longer any of the arrogance and condescension he had before. Thinking about it, the destruction of the Eastern Mountain sect had also thoroughly destroyed his pride. Qin cupped his hands together. Greetings, senior apprentice brother Tao Jia. Tao Jia stopped his grief. After you left, senior apprentice sister Ning also left. Luckily, that was the case, otherwise senior apprentice sister Ning wouldn't have been able to escape. He revealed a gratified expression. It was clear that his attitude towards Ningling and Qin weren't on the same level. Qin lowered his head and didn't say anything. A cultivator stepped out from the crowd and patted Tao Jia's shoulder. Fellow Daoist Tao, there is no need to feel sad. The entire Eastern Mountain sect fought to the death against the demonic path and caused tremendous damage to them. There is no one who doesn't admire this. Moreover, you and I will soon join the army to fight against the demonic path, so there will be plenty of opportunities for revenge in the future. The eyes of several female cultivators in the crowd brightened. They cupped their hands together towards Qin and said, "Fellow Daoist, since we met here, it is fate that brought us together. How about you come with us so that we can take care of each other? Once you enter the army, you will have a chance to take revenge for your sect." Tao Jia nodded again and again. "Junior apprentice brother Qin you should come with us." This fellow Taoist Xiao Chan is a disciple of the Divine Water sect, and there is a righteous cultivator alliance station not too far away. Once we arrive we will be completely safe and you can make your own plans. He truly wanted to pull Qin Yu along. Even if he didn't like Qin Yu in the past, he still came from the same sect. After the Eastern Mountain sect was destroyed, this sort of relationship had become even more precious. Su Wei frowned. Qin Yu calmly looked at Zhao Chan and slowly shook his head. I don't want to drag you all down. It's better if I travel alone. Seeing Tao Jie's disappointed expression, Qin Yu hesitated for a moment and said, Senior Apprentice Brother Tao, the demonic path has invaded the Southern Empire and the hearts of the people are wavering. It is best to be careful. Zhao Chan's eyelids jumped up. He glanced at Qin Yu and his complexion darkened. Fellow Taoist Qin, are your words insinuating me? Qin Yu remained expressionless. They were unintentional words. If I offended you in any way, I ask that you forgive me. Farewell. He turned to leave. What arrogance! With a mere 4th-level foundation establishment cultivation, does he really think anyone would take a liking to him? That's right. If he doesn't come with us, then let's see just how far he can go. He might even be killed by a demonic path cultivator in the blink of an eye. A female cultivator from the Eastern Mountain sect had a contemptuous expression. It's just a lucky chance that allowed him to obtain the Grandmaster's charity. Otherwise, how could a mere outer court disciple compare with us? With the Southern Empire in chaos and the Eastern Mountain sect destroyed, she wanted to find a backer for herself. Zhao Chan, a core disciple of the Divine Water sect, was without a doubt the best choice. Seeing Qin Yu speak rudely, she couldn't help but reveal her background. This female cultivator was Lin Lin. During the Foundation Establishment's smelting trial, she had tried every method possible to get close to Su Wei, but now she didn't even glance at him. Everyone was startled. So this is that Eastern Mountain sect cultivator with heaven-defying luck. He doesn't seem like much at all. If it's him, then I understand. Could it be that everyone here doesn't know that fellow Taoist Qin is famous for his ability to protect his own life? He has abandoned his fellow disciples more than once, much less join the army of the righteous faction to fight against the demonic path. Go away, go away. I'm ashamed to be associated with such a person. Hurry up and send him away. Just looking at him makes my eyes dirty. Lin Lin coldly sneered. At this time, if you still couldn't see the situation, then you only have yourself to blame for falling to this step. Hold on. Zhao Chan's eyes were ice cold. Fellow Taoist Qin has provoked us first and is also in a hurry to leave. I suspect that you have already become a spy of the demonic path. If we allow you to leave, then I fear it won't be long before we all have to report to the underworld. With these words, everyone's complexions changed. Many cultivators looked at him with ill intent. Tao Jia anxiously said, Fellow Taoist Zhao Chan has misunderstood. Junior Apprentice Brother Qin Yu is a disciple of my Eastern Mountain sect and has a blood feud with the demonic path, so how could he possibly be a spy? Zhao Chan had no expression. I apologize, fellow Taoist Tao Jia. In order to ensure everyone's safety, Qin Yu can only stay behind. If he insists on leaving, then don't blame me for being ruthless. Lin Lin voiced her support. Senior Apprentice Brother Tao Jia, Qin Yu's cultivation is low and yet he was able to appear at the mountain entrance unharmed. This place is surrounded by demonic path cultivators, so don't you think it's strange? She thought she was smart and had a smug look on her face. In particular, when Zhao Chan glanced at her with appreciation, she felt as if she had been injected with chicken blood. Tao Jia hesitated. This. He looked at Qin Yu, indicating for him to hurry up and agree. Qin Yu looked at Zhao Chan, his expression calm. You really won't let me leave. Zhao Chan's eyes were cold, as if he were looking at a dead man. A black-clothed cultivator stepped forwards from behind him. Demonic path spy, prepare to die. He punched out, his 8th-level foundation establishment cultivation erupting. His fist was covered in a layer of flowing golden light that shimmered with a biting killing intent. He is truly worthy of being a brilliant disciple of the Divine Water sect. This killing technique of controlling water is at least 10 times more profound than anything I have seen before. There are few foundation establishment cultivators that can compare with this magic art. The old man with a goatee stroked his beard and praised. He was a wandering cultivator that had luckily managed to escape. His 9th-level foundation establishment cultivation was the highest amongst his group, and he was on the same level as Zhao Chan naturally. His words carried a great deal of weight. Hearing this, everyone nodded in agreement. They sneered, as if they could already see the pitiful fate of this ungrateful boy. Qin Yu. The cultivator who attacked him diabolically grinned. You think you can escape? Before his voice fell, his eyes widened in horror. A pitch-black figure appeared in front of Qin Yu. An icy cold and cold aura caused everyone's scalps to tingle. And, what left them even more horrified was the boundless demonic energy emanating from his body. Demonic Path Golden Core. Just as this horrifying thought appeared in everyone's mind, there was a dull thumping sound. The cultivator who attacked him was smashed into the ground, dying on the spot with blood flowing out of his head. Zhao Chan panicked, all of his previous composure gone. My lord, please forgive me, this is all a misunderstanding. He kowtowed again and again, sweat dripping down his forehead. Qin Yu narrowed his eyes. You said I was a spy from the demonic path, and I have already admitted it, so why would you say it's a misunderstanding? Zhao Chan lifted a hand and slapped his forehead. A twisted rune appeared and then shattered. His pure water attribute magic power began to fluctuate, turning into gloomy demonic energy. He respectfully said, My lord, this junior is a disciple of the 1,000 Illusion Demon Sect's human-faced demon elder. I was ordered by my honorable master to gather blood and food to raise the earth demon beasts. The several people around him began to undo their illusions, revealing their true appearances. Tao Jia and the others were panic-stricken. They cried out in alarm and retreated again and again. Several female cultivators that had been sending flirtatious glances at Zhao Chan paled. They never imagined that Zhao Chan and the others that they had been relying on were actually demonic cultivators. Lin Lin froze where she was, her face deathly white. Zhao Chan held an inky jade in his hand. From the moment Black Sky Demon attacked, he hadn't loosened his grip at all. He carefully swept his eyes over Qin Yu and continued to say, I wonder which sect my lord you are from. I ask that my lord forgive me if I have offended you. Qin Yu had an indifferent expression. I am Black Sky Demon. Since you didn't know what happened today, if there is a next time I will kill you without mercy. He turned and left. Zhao Chan, who had been staring at him, relaxed a little. He bowed and said, Farewell. Before he finished speaking, he felt a chill in his heart. Just as he was about to activate the inky jade scepter, he felt a sudden pain in his head, and in the next moment he was sent flying away, his head exploding in the air. Black Sky Demon's attack didn't stop at all. He rushed into the group of demonic cultivators like a fierce tiger. Miserable screams filled the air as several demonic cultivators died where they stood. Shua, Black Sky Demon, returned behind Qin Yu. He lowered his head and grasped the inky jade scepter, allowing blood to drip down his hands. It was truly horrifying to the extreme. Tao Jia and the others were shocked. They didn't know what to think as they faced this scene, but as they saw Qin Yu's eyes sweep over them, they all revealed looks of awe. In particular, the several people who had been mocking Black Sky Demon just now paled and their legs trembled. Qin Yu didn't say anything. He turned and left. After several breaths of time, he and Black Sky Demon vanished from sight. The crowd fell deathly silent. After a long time, someone spoke up. Is he really the lucky cultivator you spoke of? Lin's lips moved. But before she could speak, Tao Jia glared at her. Everyone, junior apprentice brother Qin Yu is not a demonic cultivator. Saving you and me today is the best evidence. I hope that no one will speak any nonsense in the future. Most of their eyes fell on Su Wei. Su Wei took a deep breath. My sect has already been destroyed, so what does a few grudges from the past count for? I won't say a single word about this. He lowered his head, clenching his fists beneath his sleeves. This boy that he had ignored in the past could already control their life and death. The crowd hesitated for a moment before nodding. Tao Jia relaxed a little. He had to lay the foundation for this matter from the very start. Otherwise, if news of Qin Yu being a spy for the demonic path spread out, he wouldn't be able to wash himself clean in the future even if he jumped into the Yellow River. Looking at the destroyed memorial archway not too far away, Tao Jia recalled how Qin Yu had been questioned and ridiculed by the entire sect not too long ago. He forced a smile. Junior apprentice brother Qin Yu had truly hidden his strength. Chapter 34. Genius in a Second. Remember. Go. To provide you with wonderful novels to read. After leaving the Eastern Mountain sect, Qin Yu used the soul-burying flag to receive Black Sky Demon. He didn't know what sort of treasure that Black Jade Scepter was, but it was actually able to enter the soul-burying flag. It was no wonder that when Black Sky Demon killed Zhao Chan, he had instinctively taken this demonic treasure. With the help of this demonic treasure, Black Sky Demon would become even stronger. If so, then Qin Yu's safety would be much more guaranteed. As he raced along, he encountered many fleeing cultivators. Several days later, he left the southwest region where the demonic path was wreaking havoc. Qin Yu began to think about his next step. The demonic path had invaded on a massive scale. With their formidable strength, it wouldn't be long before most of the Southern Empire's territory was caught in the fires of war. Although he had the soul-burying flag in hand, it still wasn't his own strength. Qin Yu was only at the 4th level of Foundation establishment. If he wasn't careful, he might fail miserably. It looks like I should find a place to hide. Qin Yu muttered to himself. With the little blue lamp, he didn't lack pills. What he lacked was time. With the Southern Empire in chaos, people would scatter everywhere. This was the perfect time to concentrate on cultivating. It would be best if he could directly reach Golden Core. At that time, no matter what the situation was, he would have the strength to protect himself. But before he went into seclusion, he needed to replenish his belongings. In particular, he needed various Foundation Establishment realm pills. The more the better. Shua, Qin Yu held away. 2 days later, Billowing Wave City. As a great cultivation city of the Southern Empire, it was naturally bustling with activity. The towering city walls seemed to pierce through the skies and were dozens of feet thick. There were also countless array formations supporting them, making one feel safe from the inside out. Countless cultivators gathered from all directions. In just half a month's time, the huge city had become crowded. The streets were filled with people. But in this bustling scene, most of them were in a hurry, worry on their faces. The demonic path's invasion was like a saber hanging over everyone's heads. Even if it wouldn't fall soon, it still left them feeling uneasy. In the city's largest auction house, many rarely seen powerhouses had appeared. The auction house cultivators respectfully welcomed them as they walked in. Anyone with a bit of experience knew that there had to be some extraordinary treasure in today's auction to be able to attract so many powerful figures. Qin Yu followed the flow of people and handed over his proof. he stepped into the auction house. His fourth-level foundation establishment cultivation wasn't remarkable at all. I heard that a batch of elixirs was sent to the auction yesterday, so the auction house immediately publicized it. That's why we have such a grand occasion today. Elixir. Are you sure you didn't make a mistake? Do you see those 6 people in the first row from the left? That is an elder of Immortal Eclipse Valley, an alchemy grandmaster who has spent his entire life dealing with pills. Would such a character come all the way here for a mere batch of pills? Humph. If these were ordinary pills, then the elders of Immortal Eclipse Valley wouldn't care about them at all. But according to what I know, there are 3 sets of Foundation Establishment Realm Essence Soul, Essence Augmenting, and Body Forging pills. There are 100 of each, and they are all top-grade pills. The cultivator proudly looked around. Do you know what a top-grade pill is? It's the best quality among its kind, and the potency of 1 pill is equivalent to 10 ordinary pills. That's nothing. The most heaven-defying thing about a supreme-grade pill is that it can be taken when a cultivator is making a breakthrough. It can increase the chances of success. Another person sneered. Think about it. What are the things that the major powers don't lack? Even for Foundation Establishment cultivators like us. But what about a golden core? They could be counted on one hand. These 3 sets of 300 top-grade pills had the potential to create 5 or even more golden core cultivators. With the demonic path's massive invasion, it would be strange if they didn't crazily fight over them. Just you wait, there will definitely be a sky-high price today. As the discussion continued, Qin Yu closed his eyes and meditated, as if he didn't hear anything happening around him. The auction soon began. A red-faced old man stepped onto the high platform and cupped his hands across his chest. Today, powerful figures from all over have gathered here. My humble auction house is honored by your presence. The current situation is tense and everyone is busy, so I won't speak much. Let the auction officially begin. He clapped his hands and a crystal jade box the size of a fish bowl was lifted up by 2 cultivators. They lifted off the red silk covering it, revealing the 300 pills that were neatly arranged inside. They were clearly displayed to everyone present. Within the crystal jade box, there were illuminating pearls inlaid within. The 300 light blue pills shined with a dazzling light, their appearance was simply explosive. Walala, the entire auction house was stirred up. The 2 cultivators near the crystal jade box took a deep breath. They slowly released the aura of their golden core, covering the entire high platform. They could instantly react to any sign of trouble. The red-faced old man pressed his hands down. He excitedly said, "Today's first auction item is 300 top-grade Foundation Establishment Realm pills. There are 3 groups of Essence Soul, Essence Augmenting, and Body Forging, 100 pills each. After a strict appraisal by my auction house, we have determined that all 300 pills are top grade. The 3 groups of pills will be divided into 3 auctions. Only raw materials will be used to bid. The first auction item is the first group of 100 Essence Soul pills. The base price is 1,000 sets of Essence Soul pill materials, and each increase must be no less than 100 sets. Now, begin." When the Immortal Eclipse Valley Elder in the first row shouted out a bid of 8,000 sets, the entire auction hall went crazy. Everyone was frightened away by this terrifying bid. Without a doubt, the 100 top-grade Essence Soul pills were taken by Immortal Eclipse Valley. But following that, the bidding for the Essence Augmenting pill and Body Forging pill was no less intense. In fact, it was even more fiery. The chances of a top-grade pill being born were nearly negligible. It was unheard of for 300 to appear at once. Such an opportunity would be difficult to come by again. If they missed it, they might never be able to obtain it again. Immortal Eclipse Valley was famous for being rich and overbearing. During this auction, they had taken the limelight. But as they saw the 100 essence-augmenting pills being sold off once more, the other powerhouses couldn't sit still any longer. After a short discussion, they decided to join forces. Because of this, the final 100 body-forging pills were sold for a heaven-shaking price of 11,000 sets and were won by the joint efforts of all parties. The immortal Eclipse Valley Elder's complexion darkened. He flicked his sleeves and left. There were also many cultivators that couldn't withstand the boiling atmosphere in the auction hall. They left with pale faces and absent-minded expressions, their minds buzzing in confusion. 8,000 sets of Essence Soul pills, 8,000 sets of Essence Augmenting pills, 11,000 sets of Body Forging pills, for a total of 27,000 sets of raw materials. According to market price, although there were some fluctuations in the prices of these three types of raw materials, they could still be converted to roughly 3 spirit stones per set. That was 81,000 spirit stones. For a golden core cultivator, having several thousand spirit stones was already considered rich. 80,000 spirit stones was enough to make any cultivator below the nascent soul realm go red with envy. The auction house took a 20% cut of the profits, and with just this one transaction, they had earned a great deal of money. Thus, when they received these cultivators, they were naturally respectful to the extreme. Of course, this was inextricably linked to this person's powerful aura that was hidden deep in the mountains. Beneath his black robes, there was a thick energy. Where are the things? A stiff and hoarse voice came out without any rhythm, like two dry stones rubbing against each other. The auction house's chief manager warmly smiled. After deducting 20% of the 27,000 sets of materials, I have decided to give fellow Daoist 22,000 sets. According to your request, 10,000 sets of materials have been exchanged for a total of 30,000 spirit stones. As for the remaining 3 types of pill materials, there are 4,000 each. Sets. The black-robed figure tossed out a storage bag. Put them in. The chief manager clapped his hands. 12,000 sets of materials and 30,000 spirit stones were placed into a room and then placed into the storage bag. Once the transactions were completed, both sides would tear up the contract and the transaction would be considered complete. I would like to borrow your place to rest for a while. Is that possible? The chief manager furrowed his eyebrows for a moment before concealing them. He smiled and said, "Since an honored guest has spoken, how could I refuse? Please bring the honored guest to the heaven-class private room to rest. If he has any requests, just follow them." He cupped his hands together and watched as the black-robed figure left with a guard. A strange light flashed in the chief manager's eyes and he hesitated for a moment. "Teacher, this honored guest clearly has a great background. Why don't you try to form a closer relationship with him so that we can cooperate more in the future?" A youth beside him frowned. The chief manager shook his head. "What you want to say is why I acted according to the rules and did everything I could to disassociate myself from this person." The youth respectfully bowed. "I asked teacher to dispel my doubts." The chief manager's complexion darkened. "You are still too young. Do you really think that this world is as beautiful as you imagine it to be? Over 60,000 spirit stones, that is a great wealth that even I am moved by. Do you think those wolves, tigers, and leopards that have gathered here will let him go? So what if he was powerful? In the end, 2 fists were no match for 4 hands. I fear this person won't even be able to walk 100 miles from Billowing Wave City." Chinyu followed the stream of people out of the auction house. He swept his eyes around and discovered many people with cold auras. They were looking around like hawks, as if they were looking for something. He quietly avoided the crowd and walked to a remote corner. His hand flashed with light as he took out the soul-burying flag. With a thought, a wisp of black energy rose up from the ground and fused into it. After doing this, Chinyu left the corner and merged into the stream of people. He didn't stray too far from the auction house and entered a shop that sold all sorts of spirit plants. He originally only wanted to casually stroll around to pass the time, but soon he thought of buying them. The medicine codex had many methods to cultivate spirit plants. He didn't know how long he would be living in seclusion this time, so he might as well take this chance to study them. Before the Golden Core realm, all sorts of pill materials could be bought. But, for the Golden Core realm and beyond, the spirit pills needed were incomparably precious and almost never circulated on the market. Perhaps there really would come a day when he would need to cultivate them himself, so it was best to prepare early. After making up his mind, Chinyu began to earnestly choose spirit plants. If he didn't look, he wouldn't know that there were hundreds of different types of spirit plants. He didn't look at the energy condensation realm spirit plants, they were mainly needed for the foundation establishment realm and the golden core realm. He didn't consider anything higher. Of course, he didn't look at them even if he wanted to. The seeds of nascent soul realm spirit plants were extremely valuable and they had to be carefully preserved. It was impossible for him to take them out for everyone to see. Chinyu thought of the small bag of seeds in Black Sky Demon's storage bag. If they were so carefully preserved, then they shouldn't be ordinary. He wanted to try cultivating them and perhaps there would be a pleasant surprise. An hour later, Chinyu had chosen 37 different kinds of spirit plants. Perhaps it was because the great chaos was about to arrive, but he had spent nearly 100 spirit stones. This attracted many surprised gazes. It could be seen that Chinyu was young and his cultivation wasn't ordinary. In addition to his calm demeanor, many people wondered if he was a disciple of some large sect. Such a person would often have a powerhouse following them, so no one dared to have any evil thoughts towards him. As Chinyu was putting away the seeds, there was a sudden uproar outside. The people waiting outside the auction house all rushed out with gloomy expressions. There were even some people who ignored the uproar and sent out signals in front of everyone. Soon, canopies rose up from billowing Wave City and rushed out of the city, soon vanishing from sight. Chapter 35. As the crowd cried out in alarm, Chinyu sneered inwardly. It seemed that the disappearance of the consignor had already been discovered. But no matter how these people racked their brains, they couldn't suspect him. Black Sky Demon was currently in the soul-burying flag and the storage bag was in the Black Jade Scepter. This demonic treasure was not material, but was condensed from pure demonic energy. It hovered between reality and illusion, so it could contain a storage bag and be stored in the soul-burying flag. After Chinyu discovered this, he changed his plans at the last minute, leading to today's events. From the looks of it, the effect was quite good. 3 days later, the undercurrents in billowing Wave City gradually subsided. Chinyu left the inn and followed the stream of people out of the bustling city. After walking for dozens of miles, he looked back at the huge monster lying on the ground. He secretly decided that the next time he came here, he would not be as cautious as he was today. Instead, he would rely on his own strength to make others not dare to act recklessly. Whoosh! He rushed into the jungle and found the chicken overlord waiting for him. Then, he didn't stop and continued heading northeast. Half a month later, the travel-worn Chinyu stopped outside a rolling mountain range. As he carefully looked around, surprise flashed in his eyes before he revealed a look of satisfaction. The terrain of the mountain was dangerous, and it was difficult for mortals to enter. What was even more amazing was that there was an extreme lack of spiritual power, so cultivators would not be interested in it. Moreover, it was far from the range of the demonic path, so it was a good place to live in seclusion and cultivate. Chinyu passed through the forest and carefully investigated for a day. Then, he discovered another barren land in the forest. This land was surrounded by mountains on all sides, forming a giant valley with steep cliffs. The 100 blades were hidden deep within the rolling mountains, it was nearly impossible to find them. This is it. When others chose a place to go into seclusion, the most important requirement was spiritual strength. But to Chinyu, this wasn't a problem at all. Who told him to walk the path of taking pills from the start? He didn't care about heavenly paradises or anything like that. With his foundation establishment cultivation combined with the power of the demon body, this was extremely easy to accomplish. Half a day later, several wide wooden houses rose from the ground. Then, he used the leftover materials to construct some simple tables and chairs. Now that he had a place to stay, the next step was slightly more troublesome, which was to lay down a simple array formation to conceal his aura from the outside world. This was also one of the reasons why Chinyu wanted to exchange for spirit stones. The path of array formations was broad and profound. Since Chinyu hadn't studied them, he naturally couldn't cross the threshold. But what he laid down wasn't some profound array formation. Within the Eastern Mountain sect's inner court disciple identity token, there were several simple cave-dwelling array formations. As long as he had enough spirit stones, it wouldn't be difficult to lay them down. After spending 3 days and burying 400 spirit stones into the ground, clouds and mist emerged out of thin air and covered the entire valley. Chinyu climbed up the mountain and looked at the first array formation he had personally laid down in his life. Then, he looked around and saw that this fog didn't stand out at all. Rather, it blended in with the other natural clouds and fog and was completely unremarkable. Only then did he reveal a smile. Returning to the valley, Chinyu looked up at the bright sun. He sighed with emotion at how miraculous array formations were. If he had a chance in the future, he would study them. Now, it was better to seize the time and cultivate. He dived into the wooden hut. He was extremely familiar with the place he had built himself. Without any intention of looking around, he sat cross-legged on the praying mat. Take pills and cultivate. When refining top-grade pills, magic power surged within them. This was something that ordinary people couldn't experience, so Chinyu never thought that going into seclusion was a difficult task. Unfortunately, most of the remaining pills he had on hand had been sold at the auction house. Thus, after several days, he had no choice but to temporarily stop. As a cultivator with the little blue lamp, lacking pills was a shameful matter. Chinyu summoned Black Sky Demon and took out a storage bag. With a loud clang, he set down the fleeting flame furnace. There was no need to say anything, it was time to begin. 12,000 sets of materials. With 4,000 sets of essence soul, essence augmenting, and body forging materials, according to his current success rate, he could refine at least 6,000 pills. In addition to the purification effects of the little blue lamp, if he still couldn't enter the golden core realm with all of this, then he might as well buy a piece of tofu and commit suicide. Half a month later, 900 freshly refined pills had been refined. Chinyu fell to the ground and fell asleep. Perhaps it was because he was in his own home, but he slept quite soundly. He woke up at night. He quickly took out the little blue lamp and began to promote the pills. Although he had seen this countless times, every time he saw the most ordinary pills slowly turn pale blue in the foot-long sea blue light, he couldn't help but sigh in praise from the depths of his soul. The little blue lamp was truly a treasure that could seize the good fortune of the heavens and earth. After sighing with emotion, he continued to cultivate. And when it came to cultivating, it was easy to become addicted to top-grade pills. Like this, he cultivated again and again. In the blink of an eye, over 2 months passed. When Chinyu suppressed the joy in his heart from breaking into the 6th level of foundation establishment, he suddenly frowned. He felt as if he had forgotten something. Soon, he rubbed his forehead and bitterly smiled. I've already marked out the area and I didn't hesitate to use spirit stones to lay down the array formation, but I actually forgot to plant spirit seeds. He had wasted over 2 months of growth time in vain. Luckily, it wasn't too late to make up for it. Yu took out a majestic dark steel saber from his storage bag and slung it over his shoulder. He walked out of the wooden house and began his vigorous life as a farmer. But never had he imagined that this sudden action would actually push open another gorgeous door before his eyes, and it would provide a formidable assistance to his path of cultivation. Creak, the door to the wooden house was pushed open and a black-robed youth slowly walked out. He was taller than before and his slightly immature face was now calm and steady. He stood at the door and stretched his waist. There was a series of crackling sounds from his body and a light breeze rustled his robes. He revealed a light smile. This youth was Yu. It had already been 2 years since he had gone into seclusion and his cultivation had reached the 9th level of foundation establishment. He was just a step away from breaking into golden core. A bamboo dragonfly flew over and landed on his shoulder. Yu lifted a hand and poured magic power into it. It spread its wings and flew away, soon vanishing from sight. The bamboo dragonfly had a trace of his divine sense within it. If someone were to intrude into the mountain valley, he would immediately awaken from his cultivation. All he needed to do was to pour in magic power once every month. The massive valley had already been reclaimed. Mountain springs were drawn in from not too far away to irrigate the land. All sorts of spiritual plants grew separately, forming a lush green medicinal field. When it came to cultivating spiritual plants, although it seemed simple, it was actually extremely troublesome. This was especially true when it came to pollinating spiritual plants and they had to be carefully taken care of so that other pollen wouldn't contaminate them. Even though the Medicine Codex had all sorts of detailed records, Yu's road of cultivating spiritual plants wasn't smooth at all. He had to spend a great deal of effort to raise them. Unfortunately, spiritual plants grew far too slowly. And the more precious and high rank a spiritual plant was, the slower it would grow. For example, there were 3 Golden Core Realm spiritual plants. In 2 years, they had just passed the seedling stage and were still several dozen years away from maturity. Thinking of this, Yu subconsciously frowned. As he thought of the various raw materials he would need for pills in the future, he bitterly smiled. It seemed that even with the little blue lamp, he wouldn't be able to travel the road of cultivation smoothly. After inspecting the medicinal field and determining that there weren't any major problems, Yu walked in. Carefully trimming. Plowing the soil, weeding, catching insects, irrigation, each of these tasks had to be adjusted according to the species. For example, the fire thread grass could not be watered too much, or it would quickly wither. The water flower, on the other hand, had to be watered enough for it to grow normally. These trivial matters didn't cause Yu to become impatient. His expression was calm and his movements were smooth like flowing water. His entire mind was in a relaxed state. This was also a type of cultivation. What he cultivated was the path of tranquility. After a short period of tranquility, swallowing pills and refining them would often be smoother. After dealing with the last medicinal field, Yu stood up and let out a sigh of relief. He walked over to the canal to wash his hands. As he saw 2 withered yellow seedlings not too far away, he subconsciously frowned. He walked over to take a look. Although he had taken care of them according to the Medicine Codex, their condition was deteriorating day by day. He feared they wouldn't be able to last much longer. Yu revealed a regretful expression. These 2 seedlings were the spiritual plants in Black Sky Demon's storage bag. At the start, they were smoothly planted. Not long after they broke through the soil and grew to their current size, they immediately fell into this sickly state. If they were ordinary spiritual plants then that would be fine, but Yu had determined their identity in the Medicine Codex. They were an extinct ancient spiritual plant, 1000 Gold Mulberry. Coincidentally, Yu had obtained the Ancient Beast Dominion art from Black Sky Demon and there was a list of ancient insects. The 73rd ranked purpleback bluewing ant was a creature that ate 1000 gold mulberries. There was a rumor in the Southern Empire that the #1 immortal cultivation sect, Immortal Eclipse Valley, had purpleback blue-wing ants as their guardian spirit beast. If they could raise 1,000 gold mulberries, what a pity, these 2 carefully tended 1,000 gold mulberries would soon wither away. Qin Yu was filled with helplessness. He thought for a moment and then dug up the 2,000 gold mulberries. He placed them in a round basin and moved them into his room. Since they were about to die anyway, he might as well give it a try. Perhaps the withering of the 1,000 gold mulberries was related to the sunlight. The interior of the wooden cabin was simple and crude. But the wooden frame that held the pills was actually quite exquisite. It was driven by a stream of water drawn in by the bamboo tube and slowly rotated at all times. This ensured that the little blue lamp hanging above could help all the pills on the wooden frame advance as time passed. Looking around, Qin Yu casually placed the 2,000 gold mulberries in a corner of the wooden frame. Then, he walked into his training chamber and sat down on a round cushion, calming his mind. After a long time, when his mind had completely calmed down, he flicked his sleeves and 5 jade bottles appeared in front of him. Each jade bottle contained 30 essence augmenting pills for a total of 150. During this seclusion, Qin Yu would borrow these 150 top-grade essence augmenting pills to attack the Golden Core realm. He lifted a hand and opened a bottle. He took out 4 essence augmenting pills and swallowed them down. After many experiments, he found that 4 pills was the best amount to absorb the medicinal efficacy the fastest. Any more and it would be a waste. Bang! The medicinal efficacy spread through his limbs and bones, fusing with his flesh and blood and transforming into spiritual strength. Then, it was absorbed and sank into his Dantian Sea, constantly fusing into his foundation. At this time, with his 9th level foundation establishment cultivation, his foundation hadn't increased in size. Instead, its color had turned a deep and translucent blue. It emitted a jade-like light, giving off a vast and boundless feeling of majesty. Time passed a day at a time. The Great Tao Foundation within Qin Yu's Dantian Sea had turned blue to the extreme. A halo of light flowed around it, faster and faster. Suddenly, Qin Yu's eyes flashed open and he swallowed down 10 essence augmenting pills. At this time, he didn't care about wasting them, because there was a light cracking sound in his Dantian Sea. It was like the first crack in winter ice, and the halo of light that flowed around the Great Tao Foundation began to gather towards the center. The entire Great Tao Foundation darkened. Only the center was like a blazing sun, erupting with light that couldn't be looked at directly. At this time, the Great Tao Foundation could be seen as a thick layer of earth. After countless years of accumulating strength, the thing that had been bred here would finally break through the earth. #####. I had been uploading and updating automatically, but I suddenly discovered that I ran out of manuscripts for today, so I hurriedly reposted them. Sorry. Chapter 36. Genius in 1 second. Remember love go away. An astonishing absorption rate came from the Great Tao base. The 10 essence augmenting pills were instantly swallowed up. Qin Yu lifted the jade bottle and tossed it into his mouth, chewing and swallowing it. The turning point for a breakthrough was right in front of him. If he succeeded today, he would be able to reach Golden Core. The light in the center of the Great Tao base became increasingly bright. He crazily swallowed pills and barely managed to keep up with the absorption rate of the Great Tao base. But at this time, Qin Yu's body shook. He stuffily coughed and blood flowed out from his nose and mouth. He opened his eyes. They were incomparably dim, revealing a look of disappointment. He had failed. Luckily, he had the experience of breaking through to the Foundation establishment realm. Qin Yu never thought he would succeed in one try. He took several deep breaths, the depression in his heart dispersing. He began to observe his body. Within his Dantian sea, the light in the center of the great Tao base had faded away. The base itself was much dimmer. It was clear it had been damaged because of the failed breakthrough. But the colors seemed to be much richer than before. With a thought, a bit of magic power gushed out. Qin Yu was stunned. It seemed, it was a bit purer than before. Strange, he had never heard of anyone having such a benefit after failing a breakthrough. Qin Yu's face was cloudy and uncertain. In the depths of his dark eyes, a light began to gush out. If the magic power in his body was considered a bucket of water with a purity of 10%, then after breaking through, there would only be half a bucket left and the purity would be 9%. Everyone was clear about the benefits of having pure magic power. This was a qualitative improvement. Usually, only extremely high-level cultivation techniques would have the effect of refining magic power. That was why the disciples of the famous sects could suppress everyone else, and every one of them was outstanding. Whether it was using magic arts or controlling treasures, if someone used the same amount of magic power, they would only need 50% of their magic power to match their full strength. This was the power of pure magic power. What Qin Yu cultivated was the Eastern Mountain sect's ungraded true wood arts. It was so incomplete that there were only 3 pages left. But today, he seemed to have found a way to forcefully change the quality of his magic power. When others failed to break through to Golden Core, their mortal body would suffer an impact of magic power and they would be severely wounded. But, he only had a pale complexion and a slight shift in his organs. With the demon body's powerful regenerative abilities, he would likely be able to recover from this minor injury after a nap. This meant that he could attempt to break through every few days. Even if he failed, he could still purify his mana. Under the situation where the total amount of mana could not be increased, the higher the quality of the mana was, the more mana was concentrated, and the stronger his strength would be. If so, then it would be better to delay the day he broke into the Golden Core realm so he could purify his magic power a few more times. If he missed this opportunity, he might have to wait until he broke into Nascent Soul. With this in mind, Qin Yu felt much better. He swallowed several body-forging pills to repair his mortal body. Reality proved that the demon body's regenerative abilities were far stronger than he had imagined. After a day and night, all of his wounds had been restored to their original state. After swallowing several essence-augmenting pills, his magic power was filled to the brim. As he looked into his Dantian sea and saw the even more dazzling Great Tao base, his lips curled up. Continue. He opened the jade bottle and poured in the medicine. The light of the Great Tao base condensed once more. An hour later, there was a stuffy cough. Qin Yu wiped the blood from the corners of his lips and felt the increasingly pure magic power in his body. He smiled. He swallowed a pill to repair his body. In theory, the process of breaking through was to condense one's magic power and break through a critical point to reach the goal of increasing one's boundary. Thus, even if one failed, their magic power would become purer during the breakthrough process. But, no one could compare with Qin Yu in terms of pills. He could eat top-grade pills like medicine to restore a massive amount of spiritual strength. Thus, the purity of the magic power that other cultivators obtained after failing couldn't be mentioned in the same breath as his. There was also another important reason, and that was the strength of the demon body. If one were to compare a person to a bucket, the stronger the bucket was, the stronger the impact it could withstand and the better the concentration would be. On the other hand, if magic power broke through the impact and the pressure drained onto the body, the result would be greatly reduced. This was the reason why Qin Yu was different from others. He could use his failure to break into the Golden Core realm to purify the magic power in his body. It was basically impossible to replicate. Dong! There was a dull thumping sound in the training room. Strong winds rose up, shattering the windows and sending them flying away. Countless cracks appeared in the ground like spider webs. Yu opened his eyes and spat out a mouthful of blood. The stabbing pain in his chest caused his face to pale. As he carefully investigated the state of his body, the joy in his eyes gradually turned to worry. This was the 7th time he had failed a breakthrough. As the purity of his magic power increased, the impact of his magic power when he failed also became increasingly strong. At the start, it was only able to cause minor injuries to him. But now it was able to truly injure him. Although he was fine right now and could recover after a few more days of rest, what Yu worried about was that if he continued to fail, sooner or later his mortal body wouldn't be able to withstand it. As he thought about the possibility that one day he would explode into pieces due to a failed breakthrough, his complexion darkened. After a long time, he bitterly smiled. Indeed, there were pros and cons. There was no such thing as an absolute good in this world. If he couldn't find a solution for now, he could only suppress his worries. Golden core, why is it so difficult to break through? Yu mumbled to himself. He had completely forgotten that not too long ago, he had been hoping that his breakthrough would come later. After 10 days, Yu finally recovered from the backlash of his magic power. After hesitating for a moment, he didn't dare to continue breaking through. He stood up and left the training room. As he thought, the bamboo dragonfly had already flown to the door of the cabin and fallen into a deep slumber. Yu shook his head and poured in magic power. The bamboo dragonfly trembled and woke up. Its wings vibrated with increasing strength and a pair of eyes that were refined from some unknown material began to shine. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, it vanished from sight. Yu was a little relieved. At the very least, the effects of purifying his magic power were clearly displayed on the bamboo dragonfly. The magic power he poured in this time could likely last for 3 months or even longer. He looked around the medicine field. While the bamboo dragonfly was sleeping, no one had come in. There were only several bite marks on a corner of the 7-star flower medicine field. Yu frowned and cursed this glutton. He had warned it not to mess around in the medicine field, but it actually dared to be so brazen. He had to find a chance to teach it a lesson. As he was thinking, the fog at the edge of the mountain valley began to tumble, gradually turning transparent to reveal a flock of brightly feathered pheasants. The pheasant at the front was tall and proud. As it strode forward, it would shake its wings from time to time. Soon, a beautiful hen would appear and carefully comb its feathers. The chicken overlord looked at the mountain valley with a smug expression. Its small eyes stiffened as it squawked several times. The flock of hens obediently retreated to the back. The chicken overlord flapped its wings and flew over. As it landed, it began to act like a spoiled child, wagging its tail and rubbing its trousers. Soon, a beautiful hen would appear and carefully comb its feathers. Ever since 2 years ago, when the Eastern Mountain sect was in ruins, it had seen Yu summon Black Sky Demon to slaughter Zhao Qian and the others. Ever since then, it had become this shameless and unscrupulous appearance. Moreover, as time passed, it seemed to become increasingly serious. Of course, in front of other chickens, it was still very arrogant. No, it was much more arrogant than before. Its cheap and despicable appearance as if it had a backer made one's teeth itch. Yu kicked it away, sneering again and again. It seems you've grown bolder recently. You actually dare to defy me and steal the spirit plants in the medicine field. The chicken overlord hopped up and down, its wings pointing at the heavens and cursing the earth. Its wronged appearance caused Yu's eyebrows to arch up. He was already familiar with this little fellow's temperament. If it really did something wrong, then it would act like a spoiled child and beg for forgiveness. Wasn't it the one who did it? But the mountain valley was protected by an array formation. If it wasn't the chicken overlord, then what else could have entered? Yu walked into the 7-star flower medicinal field. He squatted down and carefully looked around. There were several shallow footprints on the ground. It really wasn't the chicken overlord. Chin-yu didn't pay attention to its aggrieved expression that seemed to say, "Master, you've wronged me." He stood up and walked to the edge of the mountain valley. He dug up the dirt and found a spirit stone. As he thought, the spirit stone buried here was extremely turbid. Just touching it would cause it to disintegrate. He quickly took several steps forward and dug out a second spirit stone. It was a bit better, but it hadn't broken yet. If this chapter wasn't finished, please turn the page. It was already turbid and wouldn't be able to last much longer. He checked several more spirit stones and found that most of them were the same. It seemed that the array formation was gradually losing effectiveness, allowing some wild creature to break into the medicinal field. Chin-yu frowned. According to what he knew, this sort of simple array formation had an extremely low consumption of spirit stones. After laying it down, it should have been able to last for several years. But now, it had only been 2 years and the spirit stones had run out of spiritual strength. There seemed to be something wrong. But he couldn't find the reason for this. He could only attribute it to the lack of heaven and earth origin energy here, causing the consumption of spirit stones to accelerate. It was only 400 spirit stones. To Chin-yu, who had over 60,000 spirit stones on him, he naturally didn't care about them at all. He replaced them all to prevent the medicinal field from being damaged. He glanced at the chicken overlord. This fellow was looking at him with a pitiful expression. He didn't know how it had been trained, but its eyes were always watery. Chin-yu jokingly cursed. He took out several pills and the chicken overlord wolfed them down, a look of enjoyment on its face. But in the end, there were only 2 left. Seeing that Chin-yu didn't object, it picked them up with its beak and flew out of the mountain valley. When it landed in front of a flock of hens, it immediately puffed up its chest. With a flap of its wings, 2 of the brightest hens walked out. They were each rewarded with a pill, immediately putting on an expression that said, "I love you so much." The other hens rushed over with red eyes. They rubbed against each other and cried out. The chicken overlord was teased to the point where its appetite was greatly aroused. With a strange cry, it led them into the woods. To use top-grade pills to feed a spirit beast, and a useless chicken at that, there was no one else in the entire 100,000 miles of the Southern Empire that could do this. Chin-yu didn't think too much about it. Or perhaps, he didn't care. With pills, he could live a heroic life. He had met the chicken overlord at the beginning. Since they were fated to meet again, he had to treat it well. Of course, this fellow was cute and silly, so it was good to adjust his mood. He patted his hands and went to wash them in the canal. Then, he subconsciously turned his head and remembered that the 2,000 gold mulberries had been transplanted into the house. He hadn't noticed them just now, but they had likely withered away by now. Chin-yu walked into the wooden house with regret in his heart. As he swept his eyes around, he was stunned. The 2,000 gold mulberries didn't have the slightest wilted appearance from before. Instead, they were growing with incomparable vigor and vitality. They had actually grown a foot high and spat out several small mulberry leaves that were dotted with golden stars. They naturally emitted an ancient and boundless aura. Chin-yu was stunned for a long time. His eyes slowly shifted towards the little blue lamp. Even with his current mood, he couldn't help but feel his throat go dry. The 1,000 gold mulberries were placed on the wooden frame. As the wooden frame flowed with the current, it would eventually touch the foot of sea blue light. If it was said that the 1,000 gold mulberries reversal had nothing to do with the little blue lamp, Chin-yu wouldn't believe it. If this was true, at this time, cultivating, breaking through, everything else was tossed to the back of his mind. He turned and rushed out to transplant different spirit plants from the various medicine fields, eagerly waiting for night to fall. When the sun fell and the long day finally passed, the dim light of night covered the mountain valley. The little blue lamp began to release a deep blue light. The spirit plants were bathed in this blue light, as if they were covered in a layer of precious light. Then, an astonishing scene appeared. All of the spirit plants began to sway back and forth. Their leaves gently shivered in excitement, as if they had swallowed the greatest tonic in the world. They began to grow at an incomparably slow but firm pace. The rising sun pierced through the darkness. Golden sunlight sprinkled over the earth. Qin Yu was still sitting on the ground, a blank look on his face. This sort of blankness wasn't confusion. Rather, it was a natural reaction that occurred when a person's mind couldn't bear it. After a long time, he blinked his eyes and pinched himself. It hurt. This really wasn't a dream. Qin Yu reared his head back and laughed. His hearty laughter passed through the wooden house and echoed throughout the mountain valley. The little blue lamp, my little blue lamp, it is truly worthy of being the most mystical treasure in the world. On this day, besides being a pill used to upgrade himself, Qin Yu also discovered a second use, to accelerate the growth of spirit plants. Chapter 37. Genius in 1 second. Remember love go away. After a night of bathing in a foot of sea blue light, all the spirit plants would enter a mature period. This was equal to 3 years of natural growth. After a moment of ecstasy, Qin Yu calmed down and immediately began a new experiment. Since he had discovered a second use for the little blue lamp, why couldn't there be a third or fourth? Thinking of this possibility, Qin Yu's calm heart began to heat up once more. 3 days later, Qin Yu's experiment came to an end. He had placed over 100 different items into the foot of sea blue light, and the final result caused his blood to cool down a little. The little blue lamp could accelerate the growth of all plants. Even if they weren't spirit plants, bathing in this blue light could still improve their quality. In other words, they could transform into spirit plants. But correspondingly, no flesh and blood creature could absorb the blue light released by the little blue lamp. Refining materials, magic tools, and even spirit stones were similarly ineffective. Qin Yu was a bit disappointed, but he immediately understood. The 2 uses of the little blue lamp could already be called heaven-defying. If it were any more powerful, then perhaps even the heavens wouldn't allow it to appear in this world. He should be satisfied. With the ability to accelerate the growth of spirit plants, he wouldn't have to worry about refining high-level pills in the future. The only pity was that the sea blue light was only a foot long and couldn't be used on a large scale. For now, it could only accelerate the growth of some high-level spirit plants, such as the 1,000 gold mulberry. According to the Medicine Codex, 1,000 gold mulberry could evolve into a great sun mulberry after 1,000 years, and at 10,000 years, it could evolve into the ancient starry sky. The purple-back blue-wing ants raised by the great sun mulberry had a certain chance of evolving into the 24th ranked ancient insect, the yin-yang twin ant. Their wings were black and white, and they didn't fear the power of the 5 elements. They were incomparably bloodthirsty, and their killing power was astonishing. Even a nascent soul cultivator could only flee if they encountered them. As for the ultimate version of the ancient starry sky, the reason it was called this was because at this stage, a starry sky would appear on every mulberry leaf. It was rumored that these leaves contained the power of the starry skies. If the yin-yang twin ant ate this, it would have a chance of evolving into an ancient ant. This ant was ranked 6th on the ancient insect list. It jumped out of the 5 elements of yin and yang and could fly through the heavens and earth. In ancient times, if this ant became a plague, wherever it passed, all life would be cut off, leaving not a single blade of grass behind. Its terrifying might was beyond imagination. Qin Yu wiped the drool from the corners of his lips. He thought that he would definitely have to make a trip to Immortal Eclipse Valley in the future. If he could obtain the purple-back blue-wing ants, that would be the same as grasping a great killing tool that could evolve. Then, the ancient beast dominion art would truly shine. But right now, he was just a mere foundation establishment cultivator. If he went to Immortal Eclipse Valley to steal the tiger's whiskers, that would be no different from seeking death. The most important matter right now was to make a breakthrough in his cultivation. Only by reaching Golden Core would he have the strength to protect himself. He had the 2,000 gold mulberries continue to stay on the wooden frame. Then, he rested for a moment and began to refine pills. He didn't believe that he wouldn't be able to smash open the gates of the Golden Core Great Tao with a massive amount of pills. 3 months later. The earth-shattering sound was like muffled thunder. The wooden house that was used as a training room was directly smashed. Countless broken pieces of wood flew in all directions, destroying many spiritual plants in the medicine field. Dust and smoke rose everywhere. A series of coughs could be heard as vision blurred. The coughs were so intense that people were worried that their chests would be torn apart. Qin Yu coughed as he spat out blood. Countless tiny cracks appeared on the surface of his body. He was like a pot that had been burnt in a kiln, his entire body a bloody gourd. It was only after a long time that he managed to stop. He slumped to the ground, gasping for breath. Every breath he took was like countless knives, cutting into his windpipe and lungs. The pain was so intense that his vision turned black. His 17th attempt to break into Golden Core had failed. The injuries he suffered this time were far more terrifying than Qin Yu expected. If it weren't for the powerful degree of the demon body, then he would have already turned into a pile of minced meat. But even though his hands and feet were intact, his body was riddled with holes. If it were anyone else with such injuries and they didn't have a spiritual object to heal their mortal body, they would have been crippled. With the powerful regenerative abilities of the demon body as well as abundant pills to restore himself, Qin Yu was able to carefully move around after a month and recover to his original state after 4 months. Then, he didn't dare to try again. He really didn't dare to. He even stopped cultivating. Qin Yu was now infinitely close to the Golden Core realm. The magic power in the sea was inconceivably pure. The slightest movement would cause it to boil over. At that time, he wouldn't even be able to decide before he attacked the Golden Core realm once more. If he succeeded, then that would be good. But if he failed, as he imagined the scene of flesh exploding like fireworks, Qin Yu felt a cold sweat drip down his forehead. Standing in the mountain valley, he looked up 45 degrees into the skies. Looking at the bright moon, Qin Yu gently sighed. Breaking into Golden Core, why is it so fucking difficult? 17 times, you bastard. It's already a miracle that I haven't died yet. Finally, he couldn't hold back any longer. His angry roars echoed through the mountains and forests. Countless vicious night beasts tucked their tails between their legs and turned to flee. The chicken overlord shrank its head back. It decided that it wouldn't return in the near future, lest the wrath of others take out on it and tear it apart. After venting out the anger in his heart, Qin Yu felt much more comfortable. He turned and sat down in front of his cabin. That night, he thought about it for a long time. Finally, he decided to leave the mountain. He had to find the reason why he couldn't form a golden core and cut it to pieces. He inspected the array formation and tidied up the medicine garden. Then, he filled the bamboo dragonfly with magic power and placed the little blue lamp, pills, and 2,000 gold mulberries into his storage bag. As the sun rose, Qin Yu easily climbed up the mountain. He looked back at the place he had lived in for 3 years and then left. Perhaps some people haven't heard of Immortal Eclipse Valley, but there is no one who doesn't know of my Heaven-Seek Pavilion. These words came from the shopkeeper of a large city of Heaven-Seek Pavilion and were widely spread throughout the Southern Empire. Even the overbearing number 1 sect of the Southern Empire remained silent. Without a doubt, this proved the credibility of these words. After Qin Yu left the mountain, he didn't need to spend much effort to obtain this news. Then, he rushed thousands of miles to Canyon Dwell City. Today, there were many cultivators entering and leaving the city, all of them nervous and hurried. This was because the fires of war in the southwest region of the Southern Empire had spread out over the last 3 years. Canyon Dwell City was built next to a 10,000-foot wide and bottomless canyon. It bordered on the edge of the battlefield, and the various sects of the Southern Empire had dispatched cultivators to gather here. They wanted to take advantage of the city's geographical advantage to wage war against the demonic path. This also explained why so many cultivators had come to Canyon Dwell City. Qin Yu followed the stream of people into the city. After a simple inquiry, he found a 3-story pavilion that shined brightly on the long street. Heaven Seek Pavilion. Written on a giant red sandalwood plaque were 3 large characters, their momentum like a rainbow. The spirit and will contained within them were like a great sun, making it hard for one to look directly at them. The momentum was enough, but wasn't it supposed to be an omniscient place that sold the news of the world and was known as an omniscient place? This sort of domineering aura didn't match the temperament of Heaven Seek Pavilion at all. Whispering to himself, Qin Yu stepped into Heaven Seek Pavilion. Luckily, the reception was perfect. A beautiful female cultivator immediately greeted him, her smile pleasing to the eye. She curtsied. The front of her robe was a bit large, revealing a bit of creamy white cleavage. Welcome guest to Heaven Seek Pavilion. If there is anything you need, please follow this servant inside. Qin Yu calmly nodded and followed behind. Looking at her swaying waist, he soon entered a separate room. A maid brought up refreshments. The female cultivator gestured, "Guest, please sit. May I ask what you would like to know?" Qin Yu frowned. The female cultivator's smile didn't diminish. "Guest, please rest assured that Heaven Seek Pavilion has an inheritance of nearly 1,000 years and has never divulged any information about our guests." Qin Yu hesitated for a moment. "I would like to know the reason why I am unable to break into the Golden Core realm." The female cultivator smiled, not caring about Qin Yu's cautiousness. Of all the cultivators she came into contact with in the past, there were many that were even more cautious than him. "Honored guest, you must know that everyone's physique is different and their experiences are different. Thus, the reasons are also different. You will need to explain in detail what ails you so that this servant can find the information you need." Qin Yu refused. "It's not convenient." The female cultivator thought for a moment. "If that's the case, then there is only one method. That is for Heaven Seek Pavilion to sell all the information we know about why you are unable to break into the Golden Core realm. But the cost will be high. After all, information is different from other things. After selling it, it will be difficult to keep it." Qin Yu had a calm expression. "Name a price." The female cultivator said to wait a moment. Then, her red lips parted and she said, 5,000 spirit stones. This price was indeed ridiculously high. Even an ordinary golden core might not have such wealth, much less the 6th-level foundation establishment cultivation that Qin Yu was currently revealing. The female cultivator didn't think much of Qin Yu. But in the next moment, her eyes widened. Qin Yu nodded. "That's fine." He casually tossed out 5,000 spirit stones. Without mentioning anything else, just this attitude alone was enough to shock anyone. The female cultivator soon composed herself. "Guest, according to the rules of Heaven Seek Pavilion," Qin Yu took out a storage bag. With a thought, 5,000 spirit stones piled up into a small mountain. The female cultivator counted them and put them away. Her tone became a bit more respectful. "Guest, please wait a moment." She went out and left. Soon, she returned with a jade scroll. Qin Yu took it and probed it with his divine sense. There was unexpectedly much information within the jade slip. There were all sorts of strange reasons for not being able to form a golden core that surpassed his imagination. Even so, he didn't dare to be careless. He carefully looked through them one by one and compared them to himself. Soon, a piece of information entered his eyes. If a cultivator swallows too many pills, medicinal residue will remain in their body, causing their golden core to be unable to form. Qin Yu's heart shrank, but he maintained his composure. He finished reading through all the information. When he took back his divine sense, the jade slip in his hand shattered into powder. The female cultivator said apologetically, "Honored guest, Heavenseek Pavilion's information does not leave the gates. I ask for your understanding." Qin Yu furrowed his eyebrows. "I understand the rules." He paused for a moment and then said, "I would like to purchase some information." He immediately chose the 4 reasons for not being able to form a golden core from the jade slip. Medicinal residue was naturally one of them. 200 spirit stones for each piece of information. All right. With a wave of his hand, he took out 800 spirit stones. The female cultivator was already prepared this time. She took out a blank jade slip and inserted her divine sense into it. "Guest, please take a look." Qin Yu calmly found the method to resolve the medicinal residue. Sky Thunder Bamboo, a rare ancient spiritual plant. The thunder it releases has the effect of dispelling impurities from the body. Although it was only for this one, Qin Yu deliberately looked at it for a bit longer. He looked up and crushed the jade slip. "Farewell." As he stood up to leave, the female cultivator smiled. "Honored guest has spent a great deal of money in my Heavenseek Pavilion. In return, I will give you a piece of information for free. The various sects of the Heavenly South are preparing to fight the demonic path. In order to boost their morale, they have taken out many treasures, one of which is the Sky Thunder Bamboo." Qin Yu remained expressionless. "Thank you." After he left, the female cultivator took out a jade slip. This was written, "The disciple of a mysterious alchemy grandmaster, the Eastern Mountain Sect's Qin Yu, entered the Canyon Dwell City Branch Division at around 5:00 today. He spent 5,800 spirit stones to purchase 4 types of difficulties in breaking into the Golden Core realm as well as methods to resolve them. It is inferred that the reason is medicinal residue." After marking the date, she turned around and slapped the wall. A black hole appeared and she tossed the jade slip in. As Qin Yu left Heavenseek Pavilion, he naturally didn't know of any of this. He turned around and frowned. Just as he was about to leave, did the female cultivator's words mean something, or was it really just a coincidence? He shook his head, suppressing these thoughts, and quickly left. Whether it was intentional or not, the information on the Sky Thunder Bamboo was extremely useful to him. That was what mattered the most. Chapter 38. An hour later, Qin Yu appeared at the largest restaurant in Canyon Dwell City. This was a place where dragons and snakes mixed together and was also well informed. Before he even finished eating, he had already gotten what he needed. The various sects of the Southern Empire had set up generous rewards for those who fought against the demonic path. Those who killed demonic path cultivators could accumulate merit points and exchange them for treasures on the 100 treasure list. The 100 treasure list was sold everywhere and was priced at a single spirit stone. Qin Yu tossed 2 spirit stones to the waiter. The waiter smiled and hurried away, soon returning with a jade slip. Probing it with his divine sense, he found that there were indeed many treasures on the 100 treasure list. There were cultivation methods, magic tools, pills, materials, and all sorts of other treasures. Qin Yu quickly swept his eyes over and found information about the Sky Thunder Bamboo in the 10th position. Ancient Spirit Plant Sky Thunder Bamboo, 800 years old, only 1. 10,000 merit points can be exchanged for it. Qin Yu put away the jade slip, his eyes brightening. This was actually a living 800-year-old plant, this couldn't be any better. With the little blue lamp in hand, if he could obtain this sky thunder wood, then the problem of breaking into the golden core realm would be easily solved. Now, the only problem was what identity would he enter the battlefield with. He couldn't use the identity of the Eastern Mountain Sect's Qin Yu anymore, and he also had to change his appearance. Otherwise, once he was discovered, there would be great trouble. To reach the 9th level of Foundation establishment in 3 years, there was definitely a problem. After leaving the restaurant, Qin Yu went to a magic tool shop and bought an appearance-changing mask for 700 spirit stones. This mask could block out the divine sense of a golden core. After entering a remote alley, Qin Yu walked out again. He was an ordinary youth, completely unremarkable in the crowd. Everything was ready. All he needed was an identity. In order to guard against demonic path spies, the cultivator army was extremely strict in checking one's identity. As for the rogue cultivator identity, Qin Yu thought about it again and again and chose to give up on it. As he was frowning, he saw several people hurrying across from him and his eyes flashed. He turned and followed behind them, turning left and right as he entered a long alley. The people in front of him turned around and the one leading them coldly said, "You've been following us all this way. What is your goal?" 2 cultivators appeared behind him, blocking his way. Qin Yu had a calm expression. He hadn't hidden his tracks to begin with, so it was normal for him to be discovered. He turned his hand and took out a black token. Kong Xian's expression changed slightly. The Patriarch's order. His eyes were filled with surprise. "You are," Qin Yu lightly said, "who I am isn't important. What's important is whether or not the Kong family is willing to keep their promise." Kong Xian hesitated for a moment before cupping his hands together. This Patriarch token is something the Kong family gifted to a Grandmaster. Although I don't know what your relationship is with the Grandmaster, since the Patriarch token is in fellow Daoists' hands and you also know the reason, the Kong family is naturally duty-bound. Patriarch. Someone beside him looked anxious. "We still have important matters to attend to. We can't afford to delay." Kong Xian said solemnly, "My Kong family owes a great debt of gratitude to Grandmaster, there's no need to say anything more." He raised his head. "May I ask fellow Daoist what matter you need my Kong family's help with?" Qin Yu said, "I want to join the cultivator army. I need proof of identity." Kong Xian heaved a sigh of relief and said hurriedly, "This is not difficult. Fellow Daoist is related to the Grandmaster, so it is impossible for you to be a spy of the demonic path. The Kong family can vouch for you." He turned and said, "Kong Lin, bring this. I am Ning Qin. Bring fellow Daoist Ning back to his residence first." Kong Xian cupped his hands together. "I have important matters to attend to right now, so I ask that you forgive me for my lack of manners." Qin Yu cupped his hands together. "It's no problem." Kong Xian quickly led his people away. Kong Lin had an anxious expression. He wanted to follow, but there was nothing he could do. His complexion was a bit gloomy. He glanced at Qin Yu and said, "Come with me." His tone was a bit harsh, but for better or worse he knew that Qin Yu was the Patriarch's guest, so he didn't go too far. Qin Yu wanted to ask about this, but seeing that Kong Lin didn't want to say anything, he nodded and followed behind, happy to be left alone. The Kong family actually had over 200 people, including the elderly, the weak, women, and children. It seemed as if the entire family had moved here. It was a bit strange. After all, everyone knew that although Canyon Dwell City was firm and had cultivators from all over gathered here, they still might not be able to defend it. With the demonic path style, if the city were to be broken through, then all lives would be lost. Qin Yu's arrival attracted an extremely small amount of attention. After Kong Lin explained himself, no one bothered to pay attention to him anymore. All of them had anxious looks on their faces. However, there were several youths that weren't afraid of strangers. After a moment of hesitation, they moved closer and pretended to be mature as they began to inquire about Qin Yu's background. Qin Yu smiled as he conversed with them. He didn't say anything, but the several youths spilled everything they knew, spitting out everything they knew. It turned out that the Kong family had been persecuted by their former enemies and had moved to Canyon Dwell City in order to seek help and avoid calamity. It was no wonder that Kong Xian and the others had anxious expressions just now. Qin Yu sat in a corner of the courtyard, casually chatting with the several youths. Occasionally, several Kong family members would glance over, but as they saw this scene, they curled their lips and looked away. He was originally someone with an unknown background and it seemed that he didn't have any skills. Now that the family was facing a great calamity, no one had the time to bother with him. As time passed, Qin Yu was completely forgotten. When it was time for the Kong family to eat, no one invited him to the table. Instead, several youths brought some food over. Qin Yu smiled and didn't refuse. As the sun began to set in the west, Kong Xian and his group returned. Although they didn't say anything, their gloomy complexion indicated the result of their trip. The atmosphere in the Kong family became even more oppressive. During dinner, Kong Xian thought of Qin Yu. He ordered someone to invite him to eat, but he was glared at by a great uncle. A great calamity has descended upon us, so where do we have the time to entertain outsiders? You and I should think of a way to get through this. Kong Xian's heart filled with worry and he soon cast Qin Yu to the back of his mind. That night, the Kong family didn't sleep, but they still hadn't found a way. Qin Yu lay down on a cart, his head resting on the bedding that a Kong family boy had brought over. He leisurely looked up at the sky. Tonight, the sky was clear and hazy, and the moon was hazy. Tomorrow, there would be wind and rain. The sky was bright, and the wind howled. The gray vault of heaven left one's heart heavy. During breakfast, the entire Kong family was in a gloomy mood. Even the several lively boys obediently sat in their chairs, not daring to make the least bit of noise. Kong Xian finally saw Qin Yu. A trace of guilt flashed across his face. My family is facing a great change and I've neglected fellow Daoist Ning. In a moment, I will write a letter of guarantee. Fellow Daoists should quickly leave lest you be implicated by my Kong family. These words caused Qin Yu's opinion of him to change a great deal. He smiled and said, "It's fine. It's just a few twists and turns, but I'm sure I'll be able to overcome them soon." Perhaps because his smile was too dazzling, the Kong family's uncle coldly snorted, "You don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. If it was just a small problem, my Kong family wouldn't be in such a sorry state." He turned around and scolded, "Our family is already exhausted from dealing with the situation, yet you're still stirring up trouble and acting as a guarantor for an unknown person. If something happens, wouldn't that be adding insult to injury?" Kong Xian blushed red. Great uncle is worrying too much. Fellow Daoist Ning Qin has the patriarch token in his hand, so there shouldn't be any problems with his status. The great uncle's expression changed slightly as if he had thought of something. He let out a low snort and didn't say anything else. If the one who came with the order was that grandmaster, everyone in the Kong clan would definitely be respectful and courteous. However, the one who came was only a Foundation establishment cultivator. In the current situation, they naturally couldn't care less. Kong Xian awkwardly said, "Fellow Daoist Ning Qin, please eat." Qin Yu nodded, no longer speaking. The tasteless breakfast was quickly removed. Kong Xian went to his study and wrote a letter. He handed it to Qin Yu. "Fellow Daoist Ning Qin, take it. You can go to the army to receive your identity card." Qin Yu cupped his hands together. "Thank you. Kong Xian pendulum, he waved his hand. It was my Kong family that was rude. I hope fellow Daoist doesn't mind. Allow me to escort you out. Just as the two arrived at the courtyard doors were kicked open. Several black-clothed cultivators stood outside. Kong family, it's been a long time since we last met. With a loud shout, the middle-aged man in the lead strode forwards. He arrogantly swept his eyes left and right, as if he didn't consider anyone beneath him. Kong Xian's complexion changed. He clenched his teeth and said, Han Cheng, my Kong family has already moved to Canyon Dwell City. What else do you want? Han Cheng sneered. I don't want anything. It's just that my family's old ancestor is interested in Senior Kong's golden core. I asked the Kong family to part with it. Delusional. Kong Xian roared. Han Cheng, don't go too far. Otherwise, if we all perish together, my Kong family might not fear you. A deep and low voice sounded out from outside the door. Perish together. Juniors like you aren't worthy of that. A white-haired old man walked in. He was tall and had an imposing aura. A divine light flashed in his eyes and an invisible aura covered the courtyard. Kong Xian and the other Kong family cultivators behind him all paled. Golden Core Realm. Although he was only at the early second level of cultivation, that was more than enough to roll over the entire Kong family. Kong Xian clenched his teeth and cupped his hands together. Greetings, Senior Han. With Senior's Golden Core cultivation, could it be that you wish to bully us and attack us juniors? Han Cheng and the others retreated to the side. Greetings, old ancestor. The Han family old ancestor had an indifferent expression. You should be asking that old freak Kong. After he broke into the Golden Core realm in the past, did he care about our status when he expelled my Han family from East Stream Town? There is no need to speak any further. Hand over old freak Kong's Golden Core, otherwise I will attack you. Qin Yut stood on the side, listening to the curses of the cultivators on both sides. He had a general idea of what was happening. In the early years, the Kong family and the Han family were both cultivation families of East Stream Town. Because of all sorts of problems, both sides had accumulated a deep grudge against each other. After the Kong family old ancestor reached Golden Core, he expelled the Han family. But now that the Kong family old ancestor had died, a foundation establishment elder of the Han family had managed to reach Golden Core through a lucky chance. Both sides had swapped positions. Not long after the Kong family old ancestor left East Stream Town, they were found by the Han family. After being humiliated and harassed, they finally offered to buy the Golden Core left behind by the Kong family old ancestor. Although a golden core was an inanimate object, if one was carefully refined it could be preserved for dozens or even hundreds of years. It possessed an extremely powerful might and could be considered a magic tool. Moreover, an even greater advantage was that it could allow one to comprehend their boundaries and break into the Golden Core realm. For ordinary cultivation families, if they didn't have a deep inheritance and deep background, the chances of them producing a Golden Core cultivator were negligible. If the Han family wanted to seize the Golden Core, they would destroy all hopes of the Kong family rising in the future. When the Kong family came to Canyon Dwell City, they originally wanted to ask for help from an old friend of their old ancestor. But who would have thought that things would go cold? Yesterday, after sitting for 4 hours, they hadn't even seen a single person. This was why the Han family had come to threaten them today. In all fairness, there was no right or wrong in this matter. In the past, the Kong family had expelled the Han family, and now they were being bullied by the Han family. They could be considered to have brought this upon themselves. Qin Yu had helped the Kong family retrieve their Golden Core, and today he received a letter of recommendation from them. It could be said that the Kong family had taken advantage of him, so he had no intention of interfering. Of course, this wasn't unrelated to the Kong family's attitude. Although he didn't care too much about it, he still felt a bit cold in his heart. Kong Xian's face paled. If he handed over the golden core, then he would be a sinner of the Kong family. But if he didn't hand it over, then he feared the Kong family would suffer a great calamity today. As he was hesitating, his great-uncle roared out, "We cannot hand over the old ancestors' golden core. With all the influences gathered in Canyon Dwell City, I don't believe that the Han family will dare to move against my Kong family." Qin Yu swept his eyes over him and cursed him for being an idiot. With the demonic path's invasion imminent, every golden core cultivator was a target to be won over. Who would have the time to bother with the fallen Kong family? Although this old fellow seemed sanctimonious, he likely had his own selfish motives. With his 9th-level foundation establishment cultivation, he was certainly the most qualified person in the Kong family to perceive the golden core. This ignorant clamor would likely draw a great calamity upon the Kong family. Chapter 39. As expected, the Han family old ancestor flicked his sleeves and the great-uncle screamed out in pain as he was sent flying away. He crashed into the cart that Qin Yu had been lying on last night and spat out several mouthfuls of blood. His old face was pale and filled with fear. He clearly didn't think that the Han family would really dare to attack him. "Since you refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit, then from today onwards, the Kong family will be thoroughly disbanded," the Han family old ancestor coldly said. The aura of a golden core pressed down on everyone's chests like a boulder, making it difficult to breathe. Kong Xian pitifully smiled. The cycle of karma is not pleasant. The Kong family cannot blame others for suffering today's calamity, but fellow Daoist Ning Qin has nothing to do with my Kong family. He shouldn't be drawn into this. Senior Han, please allow him to leave. The Han family old ancestor coldly swept his eyes over him, not saying anything. Han Xing hurriedly said, "Old ancestor, this person must be related to the Kong family. Since he attacked, we should cut the weeds and eliminate the roots." Kong Xian anxiously said, "I can swear that fellow Daoist Ning Qin has nothing to do with the Kong family. The more anxious you are, the more my Han family cannot be careless. Whether or not this boy is related to the Kong family, he can only blame his bad luck for encountering him today." Han Xing turned and respectfully bowed. "I ask the old ancestor to make a decision." The Han family old ancestor's eyes flashed. He lightly said, "I'll leave him to you to deal with." A mere foundation establishment cultivator wasn't anything at all. Han Xing diabolically grinned. "Seize this boy." He would first eliminate those unrelated people and then slowly deal with the Kong family. In any case, he had already greeted them today, so no one would bother him. Qin Yu frowned as he looked at Kong Xian. Seeing that his anxiety didn't seem fake, the coldness in his eyes faded and he secretly shook his head. Kong Xian might have had good intentions, but he had been dragged down with him. Looking at the two approaching Han family members, Qin Yu thought to himself that it was fine. Since they met again in Canyon Dwell City, he might as well help the Kong family once more. Another consideration was that if the Kong family was destroyed today, Kong Xian's recommendation letter might not be of much use. Qin Yu looked up. His eyes leaped over the two Han family members and fell onto the Han family old ancestor. His eyes brightened, a fire burning in their depths. After 17 failed breakthroughs, the quality and quantity of magic power in his body had long since surpassed the limits of foundation establishment. He also wanted to know just what level his current strength had reached. The Han family's old ancestor seemed like a good experimental subject. A golden core cultivator's mind was sharp. The moment Qin Yu's eyes fell on him, the Han family's old ancestor sensed something and their gazes met in the void. The old monster's heart skipped a beat. He actually felt a bit threatened. He cursed inwardly and wanted to stop him, but it was already too late. Bang! Amidst the muffled sound, a strong gust of wind suddenly rose. 2 members of the Han family flew out and rolled on the ground, crashing into the wall like gourds. The wall behind them cracked and collapsed. The old ancestor of the Han family narrowed his eyes. Seeing that the 2 people who were sent flying were just shocked and not seriously injured, his expression relaxed a little, but his tone was still serious. Who exactly are you? Everyone from the Kong family was stunned. They stared at Qin Yu in a daze as he drew back his hand. Their eyes were wide and lifeless, as if they hadn't recovered from the shock of seeing 2 Han family foundation establishment masters fly away like flies. Qin Yu lightly said, I have no relationship with the Kong family. I was just about to leave, but your Han family wouldn't let me, so I could only stay behind. The Han family old ancestor's momentum stagnated and he found it hard to maintain his aggressive demeanor. He glared at the sweating Han Xing and cupped his hands across his chest. In this matter, the Han family was indeed in the wrong first. I apologize to fellow Daoist. Hurry up and scram to the side so that fellow Daoist Ning can leave. Kong Xian had just regained his composure. At this time, he was filled with both regret and joy. If he knew that Senior Ning Qin had such a cultivation, he wouldn't have gone out to beg others. As he thought about how he hadn't greeted Senior Ning Qin at dinner last night, he couldn't help but curse out loud. If it weren't for you, how could my Kong family have been so disrespectful? As he was thinking about how he had to curry favor with Qin Yu no matter what, he heard the Han family old ancestor's words. Puff! He fell to his knees. Senior Ning Qin, please save my Kong family. The Kong family members weren't stupid. How could they not know that they had eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai? Ashamed and scared, they all fell to their knees. Qin Yu swept his eyes over them. Everyone in the Kong family felt their hearts skip a beat. They feared that this person would say, oh, and then leave. But to ask for his help, based on the Kong family's previous attitude, even they wouldn't be willing. For a time, all of the Kong family members wanted to cry. Oh, Kong Xian found it hard to breathe. His eyes rolled back in his head. He felt as if he had been struck by lightning and everything in front of him turned black. The only thought in his mind was that this old thief deserved to die for ruining my Kong family. I think that the Kong family's youths aren't bad. I've decided to stay and play with them for another day. A breath passed through his nostrils and into his lungs. Kong Xian's eyes rolled back into his head and he immediately recovered. The Kong family is overjoyed. We welcome Senior to stay for the time being. The Han family old ancestor's complexion darkened. Has fellow Daoist Ning made up his mind? Qin Yu pointed at the several boys from yesterday. They are all children, so how could they understand the grievances of adults? Let bygones be bygones. The Han family old ancestor's eyes were cloudy and uncertain. After a long time, he said, since fellow Daoist Ning wants to intervene, you must first defeat me. Qin Yu smiled. I ask fellow Daoist Han to give me some pointers. He wanted to help the Kong family, but he had no intention of becoming enemies with the Han family. Old Freak Han was also a cautious person, he had left some leeway in his words. The Han family old ancestor shook his head. Canyon Dwell City currently does not allow high-level cultivators to fight. Tomorrow, I will be waiting for you on the battle platform. The Han family old ancestor left. Old Freak Han retreated today not only because of the rules of Canyon Dwell City, but also because he wanted to go back and investigate Qin Yu's situation so that he could make preparations. Qin Yu didn't care too much about this, but he didn't like to openly fight and expose his strength to the public. He frowned. Kong Xian's heart shrank as he saw this. Could it be that Senior Ning Qin wasn't his match? If so, then it would be difficult for the Kong family to escape this great calamity. For a time, his thoughts were in chaos. Qin Yu noticed that his complexion was strange. He didn't say anything. He refused the Kong family's warm hospitality and entered his room to meditate, leaving the Kong family members outside restlessly. Shwa, shwa, the pitter-patter of rain finally began to fall. Although Canyon Dwell City was large, it didn't have a nascent soul guarding it. This was also the reason that the righteous and demonic factions restrained each other. Neither side had sent their peak combat strength. A nascent soul's noble status was one of the reasons, but the true reason was that this invasion of the Southern Empire could only be considered a local war between the righteous and demonic factions. The Golden Core realm was the peak combat strength on the battlefield. Thus, once news of Qin Yu and Old Free Khan's battle spread out, it immediately stirred up great waves. Countless cultivators felt their hearts surge with excitement. They decided that they would go to the military camp's battle platform tomorrow and witness a high-level battle. The sun and moon rotated, nothing else could be said. On the morning of the third day, Qin Yu pushed open the door. Kong Xian and a group of people were already respectfully waiting for him. That cold and arrogant great-uncle naturally wasn't here. Yesterday, his injuries were heavy and he had been frightened to the point that he had nearly died. At this time, he was hiding in his room, panic-stricken. "Greetings, Senior Ning Qin." Hearing the shouts coming from the courtyard, the great-uncle shivered and a damp feeling spread out from his bed. Qin Yu wasn't in the mood to bother with him. He swept his eyes around and said, "Lead the way." Kong Xian took out a letter with both hands. He respectfully said, "Yesterday's recommendation letter was too simple and crude. It hindered Senior's prestige. I ask that you accept this letter." Qin Yu didn't take it. "What identity did you give me?" Kong Xian braced himself. The Kong family's exalted. Qin Yu's lips curved up in a smile. "You sure know what to do." "Abacus." Kong Xian broke out in a cold sweat. "I beg Senior Ning Qin to agree. The Kong family is willing to offer young women of suitable age to serve you as slaves." Several well-dressed young girls shyly stepped forward and bowed. Qin Yu furrowed his eyebrows. "Have them leave." Kong Xian paled. The several young girls also had bleak complexions. Qin Yu lightly said, "Is the Kong family so unoptimistic about me?" Kong Xian was about to explain when Qin Yu took the letter. "Remember, this is your Kong family's choice. If you are implicated by me in the future, do not regret it." Kong Xian was overjoyed. "No regrets, no regrets." He turned and shouted, "Hurry up and greet the exalted." Qin Yu shook his head. "Don't delay." "Yes, yes. Lord Exalted, please follow me." Kong Xian respectfully led the way. He felt as if a great stone had been lifted from his heart. As long as Qin Yu agreed, the Kong family would have a golden core protecting them. Even if they were defeated on the battle platform today, the Han family wouldn't dare to bully them too much. To have a golden core and not have one, to a small cultivation family, this was the difference between the heavens and the earth. As for the implicated Qin Yu spoke of, there was no such thing as not paying a price in this world. Since they had enjoyed protection, they had to be prepared to suffer a backlash. From this, Kong Xian was a rather intelligent individual. The residents of the northern district of Canyon Dwell City were all relocated and a temporary military camp was set up. Cultivators from various influences were stationed here and security was tight. Kong Xian led the way, unimpeded. Along the way, all the cultivators turned to look at Qin Yu, surprise on their faces. Wasn't the Kong family's mysterious powerhouse fighting with the Han family's old ancestor? How could it be a Foundation establishment cultivator? As this news spread out, there was an uproar. Many cultivators were drawn over to confirm that the one Kong Xian brought into the camp was indeed a Foundation Establishment realm cultivator. They were immediately enraged and felt as if they had been deceived. However, besides a small number of people that left in a huff, the vast majority stayed behind. It wasn't that they had any expectations for the Kong family's Foundation Establishment cultivator, but rather that they wanted to see how this brat would be blasted to pieces. Foundation Establishment against Golden Core, TSK, what a great joke. With Kong Xian personally appearing in an official letter of recommendation, Qin Yu soon obtained a military identity token. This was also something used to calculate merit points. After refining it, every demonic cultivator he killed would be automatically recorded on the identity token according to their cultivation. He could then use this to exchange for items on the 100 treasure list. Qin Yu didn't pay attention to the strange gazes of the several cultivators in the army. He revealed a light smile. After going through so many twists and turns, he had finally joined the Alliance army. All that was left was to accumulate merit points and exchange for the Sky Thunder Bamboo. But before that, he had to settle the matter with the Kong family first. Let's go. Kong Xian nodded. Just as the two were about to leave, there was a flash of light in front of them. A middle-aged cultivator was rapidly walking towards them. He had a grand and dignified appearance and his blue clothes made him seem even more extraordinary. He said in a low voice, "Kong Xian, a great war is imminent. The powerhouses of the Alliance cannot fight." His eyes fell on Qin Yu and he fell silent. He frowned. "Who is he? Aren't you here to help the Kong family exalted obtain an identity token?" Kong Xian respectfully bowed. "Greetings, Senior Zhu Blue Cloud. Reporting to Senior, this is my Kong family's exalted, Senior Ning Qin." Zhu Blue Cloud's face darkened. "Kong Xian, I will warn you once more. The Alliance does not allow high-level cultivators to fight. Immediately find the Kong family's exalted and stop him from ascending the stage." Kong Xian had a bitter expression. "This junior isn't lying. Senior Ning Qin is here." Zhu Blue Cloud was so angry that he actually laughed. "A Foundation Establishment exalted, you really dare to say such things? If this were true, then why would that old freak Han have retreated yesterday? Did he think he was an idiot? Kong Xian, if you continue to play dumb, then don't blame me for punishing your Kong family with my status as the Alliance's punishment elder." Chapter 40. Qin Yu suddenly said, "Han Beishan has already stepped onto the stage." Zhu Blue Cloud's complexion became increasingly ugly. What a good Kong family. Not only did the patriarch play dumb, but even a mere junior dared to call out a golden core cultivator by his name. This was simply insolent. Kong Xian, control your juniors well. If they dare to spout nonsense again, I will definitely not forgive them. Qin Yu had a light expression. Why didn't you stop Han Beishan before he stepped onto the stage? Now, you want the Kong family to retreat. Is this considered preferential treatment? Shut up. Zhu Blue Cloud was enraged. You little junior, how dare you disrespect me? I must punish you today so that you don't know the immensity of the heavens and earth in the future. Kong Xian shouted, "Senior Zhu, he's really a consecrator of my Kong family." You're mistaken. Zhu Blue Cloud froze. He turned to look at the cultivators at the registration desk. Several people quickly nodded, their complexions becoming strange. Foundation Establishment realm worshippers? Had the Kong family gone mad or had the world changed? When did a Foundation Establishment cultivator dare to challenge a Golden Core cultivator? His complexion was cloudy and uncertain. He glanced at Qin Yu and said in a low voice, "Nonsense. As for the Han family, I will speak on your behalf. Kong Xian, hurry up and take this brat and scram. If you really want to die, go to the battlefield and kill demonic cultivators. There will be plenty of chances for you to die a violent death. Although Zhu Bluecloud's words were unpleasant to hear, he actually wanted to save Qin Yu's life. If so, then Zhu Bluecloud wasn't a bad person. Qin Yu smiled. Don't worry, I won't die. He stepped forwards. Kong Xian hurriedly bowed and quickly followed. Zhu Bluecloud's complexion was ugly. With his status, when had he ever been ignored by a Foundation establishment cultivator? This Kong family junior was far too arrogant. He must have obtained his current cultivation smoothly and didn't know what he was capable of. Perhaps he had some tricks up his sleeve, but he actually dared to underestimate a golden core cultivator. He didn't know how the word death was written. He wanted to wash his hands of the matter, but at such a young age, a sixth-layer Foundation establishment cultivator wasn't weak. It would be too much of a pity if he fell on the battle platform. Forget it, he would go to the battle platform and watch the battle. When he suffered a bit, he would save him. When the time comes, I want to see what kind of expression he has. Zhu Bluecloud turned and walked away. The knot of depression in his heart dissipated a little and he revealed a faint smile. Although he didn't want to admit it, he found this boy to be quite pleasing to the eye. The battle platform was a place for the cultivators of the Alliance to settle their personal grievances. Apart from blood feuds that could not be reconciled, most of them would stop at a certain point. But even so, the fight between cultivators was extremely dangerous. Whenever the winner was decided, blood would be spilled. The potholes on the surface of the fighting platform were mottled with blood and filled with invisible killing intent. Han Beishan stood on the stage, his eyes slightly closed, exuding the aura of a grandmaster. Countless gazes gathered on him, filled with awe and respect. No wonder he's a golden core cultivator. Even though he's just entered this realm, his demeanor is still extraordinary. We're far inferior. A 9th-level Foundation establishment cultivator sighed, his eyes filled with envy. Beside him were people who were about the same level as him. Hearing this, they nodded repeatedly. They had all touched the peak of Foundation establishment, but the more they did so, the more they understood the huge gap between Foundation establishment and Golden Core. The dark-faced large fellow cursed out loud. I originally wanted to watch a Golden Core battle today to confirm my own cultivation and gain some insights, but who knew I would be played for a fool? After today, I will definitely look for the Kong family's trouble. A Foundation establishment realm exalted is truly the greatest joke in the world. I wonder if the entire Kong family was scared silly or if they were just trying to stall for time. Since we're here, we might as well just treat this as a farce. I want to see just what that exalted from the Kong family will be like when he faces Senior Han. As Kong Xian listened to the discussions around him, he rolled his eyes and cursed them all for being idiots. Foundation establishment realm. With a casual wave of his hand, he was able to force back 2 Foundation establishment masters of the Han family and temporarily scare away that old ghost Han Beishan. What kind of joke was this? Senior Ning Qin was absolutely at the Golden Core realm. It was just that he had used some unknown method to conceal his aura. Perhaps he wasn't as strong as that old freak Han, but it was more than enough to protect himself. Just wait, there will be a time for you to look for your eyeballs. Kong Xian respectfully shouted out, exalted, please step onto the stage. The Kong family cultivators that had gathered behind him all spoke up, exalted, please step onto the stage. With this, it would be hard not to attract attention. Qin Yu instantly gathered everyone's eyes. Many of them were shocked and shocked. It was only now that they were able to confirm that the Kong family had found a Foundation establishment exalted. For a time, the scene was thrown into chaos. On the stage, Han Bei-shan opened his eyes. A divine light flashed and the aura of a golden core rose up. It was like a coiling serpent looking down, its dense aura causing one's scalp to tingle. After the ruckus, everything fell silent. Countless people paled. They cried out in alarm. A golden core cultivator was truly terrifying. Qin Yu looked straight ahead, his eyes meeting Han Bei-shan's. Then, he calmly stepped onto the stage. The flow of people automatically parted. As Zhu Blue Cloud rushed over, he was startled. What a brat that loved to show off. But, the gaze of a golden core cultivator wasn't easy to withstand. Han Bei-shan had already used some of his divine sense to suppress it, so he was likely just forcing himself to endure it. The golden core great Tao wasn't just empty words. The most exciting part was yet to come. Qin Yu arrived in front of the stage. With a step, he rose up from the ground and steadily landed on it. Han Bei-shan's pupils shrank. Behind him, Zhu Blue Cloud had a dignified expression. He could clearly feel that there weren't any magic power fluctuations from Qin Yu's step. In other words, he had relied entirely on the strength of his mortal body to leap onto the 10-foot-high stage. Any cultivator that paid a bit of attention to their mortal body could accomplish this. But to leap up over 10 feet from the ground like he did, that was something that not even 1 in 10,000 could do. Could this brat's trump card be the strength of his mortal body? Zhu Blue Cloud's lips curled up. He suddenly felt that this brat was even more to his liking. Who didn't know of the Earth Imperial sect's Zhu Blue Cloud? He had relied on his mortal body to create an illustrious reputation. Qin Yu cupped his hands across his chest. Fellow Daoist Han, please. Han Bei-shan took a deep breath. Let's fight. He lifted a hand and thrust out a palm. Strong wind surged up, spinning around him like sharp blades. Zhu Blue Cloud cursed out loud. He never imagined that Han Bei-shan would use his full strength against a Foundation establishment junior. Although he was here, he couldn't save him in time. As he thought about how a junior he liked would soon be turned into a pile of bloody flesh and blood, his complexion darkened to the point where it looked like it could squeeze out water. Qin Yu's eyes narrowed and he stepped forwards. His figure was like a fierce tiger breaking out of its cage, his momentum explosive as he violently broke into the whirlwind. This action surpassed everyone's expectations, and even Han Bei-shan was startled. But soon, his eyes widened in disbelief. Qin Yu's robes fluttered in the wind and flowers of blood splashed out, but none of this was able to stop Qin Yu's advance. Han Bei-shan was experienced and wanted to temporarily retreat. But just as he moved, he came to a sudden stop. An iron-like hand grasped his throat, causing blood to flow out and drip onto the stage. Qin Yu's hair was messy and his robes were torn. He slowly said, "You lost." At this time, the world fell deathly silent. Qin Yu let go and took a step back. He turned and leapt off the stage, like a mountain crashing into the sea. The cultivators below hurriedly retreated, their eyes filled with awe and shock. Han Bei-shan stiffened. His clothes were soaked in a cold sweat. If this were a battlefield, he would already be a corpse. Thinking of this, his scalp tingled. He said with difficulty, "After today, the grudges between the Han and Kong families will be written off." Qin Yu paused for a moment. Then, he nodded and walked away. Kong Xian and the other Kong family cultivators followed behind, ecstatic expressions on their faces. If one looked carefully, they would discover that their stomachs were all wet. They were trembling with excitement. He had won. The Lord Exalted had actually won. Bang! There was an uproar on the stage. To forcefully resist a golden core magic technique and subdue Senior Han in a single strike, this person's strength is terrifying. A 9th-level Foundation establishment cultivator muttered to himself, his eyes shining with a frightening brightness. If he could learn such a technique, wouldn't he also be able to roll over a golden core? Most of the people around him had similar thoughts. Their faces were cloudy and uncertain, all of them thinking the same thing: would Lord Ning Qin accept a disciple? Suddenly, someone quietly said, "Who was it just now that said that after today, they would look for trouble with the Kong family?" The dark-faced large fellow turned and walked away, as if he didn't know anything at all. Several people watched as the large fellow left, disdain in their eyes. But soon, they discovered that this fellow was chasing after the Kong family cultivators. They couldn't help but curse inwardly. How could they allow him to be one step ahead of them? Whoosh, whoosh, in the blink of an eye, the area around the stage emptied out. Countless cultivators rushed towards the Kong family. Zhu Bluecloud stood there. As the disciplinary elder of the Alliance, there was no cultivator in Canyon Dwell City who didn't respectfully bow to him when they saw him. But at this time, he was like air. Nearly 100 Foundation establishment cultivators hurried past him, their eyes never pausing for a moment. The corners of his lips twitched. He muttered to himself, "I made a mistake." Qin Yu had already expected what would happen next. Not long after he left the stage, he separated from the Kong family and put on a black robe. As he walked out from a remote corner, he just happened to run into the Foundation establishment cultivators that were rushing towards the Kong family. He smiled and turned without hesitation, heading straight for the city gates. After obtaining the status of an Alliance cultivator, the Kong family's crisis had been resolved. Qin Yu didn't want to delay any longer. He only had one Sky Thunder bamboo. If someone exchanged for it ahead of time, that would create countless troubles. 3 months later, in the wilderness, billowing demonic energy gushed out, emitting ear-piercing whistling sounds. A demonic golden core paled, fear in his eyes. He never thought he would run into that evil star. The news from yesterday was that he was thousands of miles away, so how could he appear here? The demonic cultivator roared in his heart, "That dog scout has ruined my life." With a cold sweat on his forehead, the demonic golden core fiercely turned his head. A cold aura brushed past his scalp and several strands of hair left him panic-stricken. Damn it, this magic art clearly looked like a cold blade. It was a common technique used by Foundation establishment cultivators, but it was actually so strong. With his heart filled with fear, he lost all will to fight. All he could think of was how to escape. At this time, there was the sound of breaking air behind him. The demonic golden core cursed inwardly, "It's coming again." He avoided the attack of a small black flag. But before he could relax, a pitch-black figure appeared in the surging demonic energy, smashing down with an ink jade scepter. As the demonic golden core was about to dodge, he felt a sharp pain in his mind. His body stiffened and he could only stare with wide eyes as the ink jade scepter fell down. Bang! A headless corpse fell to the ground, blood gushing out like a fountain. After killing the demonic golden core, the pitch-black figure scattered and fused into a small flag, flying back into the hands of a youth. He fell on the ground and rummaged through the flag before taking out a token. As he looked at it, a bright light flashed on his face. The 10th. This youth was Qin Yu. Canyon Dwell City had fallen into the flames of war. The righteous and demonic paths were in full swing, but he didn't join in on the fun. Instead, he sneaked into the demonic path's territory and hunted down demonic path powerhouses. The Alliance calculated merit points based on one's cultivation. Hunting down high-level demonic cultivators was naturally the fastest way to obtain merit points. A golden core was equal to 100 Foundation establishment demonic cultivators. Chapter 41. In 3 months, Qin Yu had traversed tens of thousands of miles and had killed 9 demonic path golden cores. This had caused a great stir and given him the title of Evil Star. Although most of those he killed were early Golden Core demonic cultivators, this was still an unbearable loss for the demonic path. They had already begun to arrange people to surround and kill him. Qin Yu realized this. By relying on his powerful demonic body to erupt with magic power, he traversed thousands of miles in a single day. Only then was he able to cut down this demonic path Golden Core today. The ground beneath his feet shattered and Qin Yu shot into the skies, instantly leaving the battlefield and disappearing without a trace. In an area controlled by the demonic path, he had to be extra careful. If he wasn't careful, then he would encounter danger. The reason he was able to kill 10 demonic golden cores in 3 months was because his strategy of changing locations with every shot he took played a great role. An hour later, Qin Yu flew above a lake and fell into the water. His body sank down and he soon arrived at a large stone at the bottom of the lake. He formed a law formula and a thin layer of light appeared. There was no large stone in front of him, it was clearly the entrance to a cave. Qin Yu flashed in. He revolved his magic power and water vapor rose up around him. His robes immediately dried up and he stepped inside. The cave wasn't large and there were signs of rough excavation. This was one of the several footholds that Qin Yu had set up. Although he had chosen early Golden Core demonic cultivators, he could still fight early Golden Cores and he also had Black Sky Demon sneak attacks. Even so, there were still extremely powerful existences around. After killing them he would be injured, so he naturally needed a safe place to recuperate. As for the array formation that hid the cave dwelling, it was an array disc that Qin Yu had obtained from a Golden Core demonic cultivator's storage bag after killing him. This thing could be activated with magic power and demonic power. After activating it, it could be used in a simple manner. It was simply a blessing for array formation novices. Qin Yu sat down cross-legged and swallowed down several pills to restore his lost strength. Today had been relatively smooth and he hadn't been injured in the battle. 2 hours later, he opened his eyes and took out his storage bag to organize his harvests. He couldn't help but praise the demonic cultivator's generosity once more. After 10 Golden Core demonic cultivators contributed a massive amount of merit points, Qin Yu's pockets had also bulged up. Their noble character and unquestionable integrity were admirable. The only regret was that demonic cultivators used demonic treasures. Even if they could drip a drop of blood to recognize a master, it would be difficult to use magic power to stimulate them. Perhaps Qin Yu's luck had taken a turn for the better, but the 10th Golden Core finally dropped a usable treasure, Cloud Step Boots. This was a magic tool that could greatly increase a cultivator's speed. Qin Yu immediately tried it on. His figure flashed and he arrived at the entrance of the cave, a smile on his face. It was truly worthy of being called Cloud Walker. With this treasure helping him, his speed had nearly doubled. If he superimposed the forbidden eruption of magic power from the Gale Step, then he might be comparable to a late Golden Core cultivator. Once again, thank you, Devil Cultivator. After tidying up everything, Qin Yu did some calculations. The merit points he had accumulated from the 10 demonic Golden Cores and some Foundation Establishment demonic cultivators should be enough to exchange for half of the Sky Thunder Bamboo. It wasn't that the Cultivator Alliance was black-hearted and had set a high price, but that the Sky Thunder Bamboo was an ancient spiritual plant that was nearly extinct in the modern cultivation world. It was also 800 years old and could be called a priceless treasure. With such a high price tag, there shouldn't be anyone who would compete with him. In another 3 months, he should be able to gather enough merit points. When he broke through to the Golden Core stage, his strength would increase by several times. Even if the Southern Kingdom was in chaos, he would still be able to protect himself. Qin Yu smiled. He prepared to cultivate at the bottom of the lake for several days. He had just killed a Golden Core, so the surrounding area would surely be heavily guarded. It wouldn't be too late to act after he had avoided the limelight. But after just a day, Qin Yu awoke from his cultivation. He rushed to the entrance of the cave and looked at the raging lake waters outside. He muttered, "They're actually fighting at my doorstep. Should I take this chance to play a big one?" Zhu Bluecloud was miserable beyond words. He had received orders from the high-level figures of the Cultivator Alliance to enter the demonic path area and destroy an array formation in order to prevent the demonic cultivators from obtaining the treasures within. Everything had gone smoothly and he had completed his mission, but just as he was about to leave, he was discovered and a golden core demonic cultivator was entangling him. With his 5th level golden core cultivation, he didn't fear this demonic cultivator. At most, he would be able to easily escape after spending a bit of effort. But Zhu Bluecloud never imagined that there would be so many high-level demonic cultivators hidden in this area. When a 3rd demonic golden core caught up, he could only flee in distress. As he fled and fought his way to the top of the lake, there were already 4 golden core demonic cultivators surrounding Zhu Bluecloud. If it weren't for his strong cultivation, his powerful magic tools, and his powerful mortal body, he feared he would have been torn apart on the spot. Even so, he wouldn't be able to last much longer. He thought to himself that his life was over. The 4 golden core demonic cultivators could see that Zhu Bluecloud was a spent force. They immediately revealed bloodthirsty and excited expressions. "Relying on your cultivation to slaughter the masters of my demonic path, today will be the day you die." That's right, the 4 demonic golden core demonic cultivators regarded Zhu Bluecloud as the infamous demonic path evil star. This could be considered him suffering in place of Qin Yu, because these high-level demonic cultivators that had suddenly appeared had come to surround and kill Qin Yu. "Evil star, prepare to die. Take revenge for the fallen powerhouses of my demonic path. Kill him. Flay his skin and pull out his tendons." Zhu Bluecloud didn't know what to say. He wanted to shout out that they had mistaken him for someone else, but that wouldn't be able to save his life. It was better to save some strength. The more the 4 demonic path golden core demonic cultivators fought, the more excited they became. They all wanted to be the one to kill this evil star. In addition, Zhu Bluecloud was tired from dealing with them and gradually relaxed his defenses. The surface of the lake suddenly exploded. Qin Yu's figure shot into the skies, instantly approaching the demonic path golden core. Spirit thrust erupted as he punched out. Bang! A head exploded in the air. Caught off guard, this demonic path golden core was killed on the spot. At almost the same time, not too far away, another demonic path golden core miserably cried out as his chest burst open. The black corpse sealing nail pierced through his chest, creating a massive hole. In the blink of an eye, 2 demonic path golden cores had died. Zhu Bluecloud had escaped from death. Just as he was about to shed tears of gratitude, he saw Qin Yu's figure and his face stiffened. Qin Yu shouted out, "One for each person. Let's finish this quickly." As he regained his composure, raging anger ignited in Zhu Bluecloud's chest. For against one to kill this father, now it was time for him to show his might. With a deep roar, Zhu Bluecloud activated his magic tool and instantly suppressed the demonic cultivator in front of him. Magic arts blotted out the skies, leaving him in a miserable state. It wouldn't be long before this battle was over. The last demonic path golden core saw the situation turn bad and turned to flee. Magic power erupted from within Qin Yu's body. The cloud step boots flashed with light, leaving behind a series of afterimages in the air. In terms of speed, he truly didn't fear anyone. The demonic cultivator in front of him turned around and sneered. He didn't fear Qin Yu at all. It was unknown what method he used, but blood-red flames ignited around his body, increasing his speed by 10 times and leaving him behind in the blink of an eye. The fearless Qin Yu's complexion darkened. He could only watch helplessly as the golden core demonic cultivator grew smaller and smaller. He stopped and frowned. During this period of time, his actions had been smooth. Every time he locked onto a target, it would be hard for him to escape death. Unconsciously, he had developed a sense of pride and arrogance, but the appearance of this demonic cultivator was like a wake-up call, crushing away all of his arrogance. The world was vast and there were countless fortuitous encounters. He definitely wasn't the only one with hidden cards and methods. If he maintained his previous attitude, sooner or later something would happen. Qin Yu looked in the direction that the demonic cultivator had fled in. Although he had to thank this demonic cultivator to a certain degree, if he had the chance he would kill him without hesitation. He was very interested in a method that could instantly increase his speed by 10 times. As he flew back to the lake, Zhu Bluecloud's battle had just ended. The demonic cultivator across from him had been smashed to pieces, his blood dyeing the surface of the lake red. You dare be arrogant. You dare to be skinned alive. I'll tear you to shreds first. Chase me again. Chase me down. The corners of Qin Yu's lips twitched. Zhu Bluecloud coughed twice, an awkward and hesitant expression on his face. Qin Yu waved his hand. There's no need to thank me. Hurry up and leave. This place will soon be overturned by demonic path cultivators. With a splash, he dove into the bottom of the lake. After activating the array disc, he broke through the water and vanished from sight. Zhu Bluecloud let out a long breath of relief. He was known as the sage who would rather die than lose face. To have him bow his head in thanks was worse than having his flesh cut off. Something's wrong. Zhu Bluecloud stomped his feet and cursed. Ning Qin, you bastard, it turns out I was the one who took the thunder for you. As Qin Yu faintly heard the roars behind him, he smiled. His figure continued to rush forwards, sticking close to the ground. After killing 3 demonic path golden cores in a single go, he couldn't stay here any longer. With the black robe concealing his aura and in addition to being cautious, Qin Yu crossed over 3,000 miles in 2 days. After killing several Foundation establishment demonic cultivators along the way, he arrived at Billowing Wave City. This was a bustling city that he had once visited before. Now, large sections of its walls had collapsed and the remaining areas were covered with traces of bombardment. It was clear that it had been ravaged by the flames of war. He took out the soul-burying flag. With a thought, Black Sky Demon's figure appeared. Demonic energy surged around his body, transforming into a black robe similar to Qin Yu's. With Black Sky Demon in front and Qin Yu behind, the two of them swaggered into Billowing Wave City. The demonic path cultivators guarding the city had awe in their eyes. Only when the two of them vanished from sight did they dare to stand up. The demonic path had an even stricter hierarchy of ranks. Moreover, demonic cultivators were generally violent and cruel. It was common for them to kill low-level demonic cultivators, so how could they dare to offend the Golden Core Realm Black Sky Demon? The reason Qin Yu had avoided the demonic path search several times was because of this method. No matter how the high-level figures of the demonic path racked their brains, they still wouldn't have imagined that he would openly live in a city controlled by the demonic path. Black Sky Demon appeared and smoothly found a residence. The several demonic cultivators that occupied this residence respectfully bowed and left on their own initiative. This was the naked law of the demonic path, the strong were supreme. Qin Yu settled down and swallowed pills to cultivate. At the same time, he controlled Black Sky Demon to mix into Billowing Wave City. He had successfully locked onto and killed many targets, and this was all thanks to the traitor Comrade Black. But for some unknown reason, the demonic path seemed to be extremely tense these past days. The Golden Core cultivators all came and went in pairs. Qin Yu pondered for a moment and found the reason. It must be that the demonic cultivator that escaped had spread what he knew, causing the high-level figures of the demonic path to be on guard. Black Sky Demon made some inquiries and found that this was indeed the case. The evil star that the demonic cultivator spoke of wasn't a single person, but two golden core cultivators working together. One of them was the powerful Zhu Blue Cloud of the Righteous Path Alliance. Although he didn't know the identity of the other person, he knew that his strength was above Zhu Blue Cloud's, and that person had instantly killed two demonic path golden cores. As this news spread out, the demonic cultivators all cursed the Righteous Path cultivators for being despicable and sending out masters to assassinate them. They all vowed to take revenge, swearing that they would kill Zhu Blue Cloud and that demonic cultivator so that they wouldn't be able to return. But revenge was revenge and swearing was swearing. No one dared to underestimate the evil star duo. 3 of the 4 golden cores had died. That was enough to prove just how fierce they were. It was because of this that the demonic and golden cores formed teams and acted cautiously. If anything went wrong, they would immediately call for help, leaving Qin Yu with nowhere to attack. If I don't dig up the roots when cutting weeds, it really is a disaster. Qin Yu wryly smiled. He could only patiently wait for a chance. Several days later, Qin Yu didn't see a lone demonic path golden core. Instead, through Black Sky Demon's eyes, he unexpectedly saw an acquaintance. It was the demonic cultivator that had escaped that day. In his room, Qin Yu's eyes flashed open. After a moment of thought, a cold smile appeared on his face. Chapter 42. Nearly half of Billowing Wave City had been destroyed in the war, but due to the influx of demonic cultivators, it had managed to recover to a certain degree in a short period of time. The smell of wood and paint had yet to disperse from the hasty renovation of the restaurant, but it did not stop the guests from coming in like clouds. The invasion of the Southern Kingdom was unstoppable. Most of the demonic cultivators had made a fortune and their wallets were bulging, so they could eat and drink with confidence. In a private room on the 3rd floor, a dozen or so high-ranking devil cultivators were gathered together, toasting to the person at the head of the table, and their flattery was unbearable. Fellow Taoist Sweeping Cloud fought the evil star duo and escaped unscathed, spreading news of this to prevent high-level cultivators of my demonic path from being injured. This is truly a great deed. We are lucky to have fellow Taoist Sweeping Cloud, otherwise who knows how many lives my demonic path would have to pay in order to learn this information. Come, let's raise our cups together to fellow Taoist Sweeping Cloud. Sweeping Cloud Demon was only at the 3rd level of Golden Core. When had he ever shown his face in front of someone of the same level? At this time, his face was flushed red with embarrassment, and he even grinned from ear to ear. Just as he was about to say a few more words and then drink the cup, the door to the private room was suddenly kicked open. A black-robed figure locked onto Sweeping Cloud Demon and coldly said, "Evil thief, you killed my wife and son. Now that 20 years have passed, I have come to find you to pay with your life." The thick resentment in his voice was so thick that anyone who heard it could feel the deep blood enmity within. The table of cultivators that were originally filled with rage looked at each other in dismay. They could clearly imagine the entire situation. Sweeping Cloud Demon had killed his wife and child, and now he had come to seek revenge. Several demonic path golden core cultivators that were originally unconvinced glanced at Sweeping Cloud Demon and cursed him for being an idiot. What did it matter if demonic path cultivators killed their wives and children? Who here hadn't done something similar? But since you did it, you should have cleaned up your hands and feet. Now you've provoked trouble for yourself. His aura was not obvious under the black robe, but a formless baleful aura lingered around him. With a single glance, one could tell that he was not someone to be trifled with. A demonic golden core hesitated. Brother Dangyun, this is, Sweeping Cloud Demon was also in a daze. He had already forgotten what happened 20 years ago. Had he ever killed his wife and children? He seemed to have done it before. As he thought of this, an awkward expression appeared on his face before it darkened. At the most brilliant time of his life, someone had actually come to seek revenge on him, and this was because he hadn't handled the matter properly. This caused him, a demonic path golden core, to lose all face. Humph. Sweeping Cloud Demon coldly sneered. In the past I killed your wife and son, so today I can kill you. If you want revenge then come. When the demonic cultivators at the table saw that he had admitted it, they immediately stood up and tried to smooth things over. Some said, "It's not easy to obtain the Jin Dan Dao, but it's even more difficult for us demonic cultivators." Some said, "The Jin Dan Dao has already been formed, and thousands of beauties are at his beck and call. If his wife and children die, he can just remarry and have more." Finally, there was someone who painstakingly tried to persuade him, "It's stupid to risk your life for the dead. We should face the sea and welcome a better future." The black-robed figure remained silent, as if he were about to move. The several demonic cultivators glanced at each other and calmed down. Although the demonic path was chaotic, battles between high-level cultivators were strictly forbidden. This was especially true after Golden Core demonic cultivators had been killed off one after another recently. If Sweeping Cloud Demon really were to fight to the death with this person, they would be in trouble. Come. Drink a cup of wine with Sweeping Cloud Demon and forget the grudges of the past. From now on, we are all friends. A Golden Core demonic cultivator boldly said. He took out 2 large bowls and filled them with wine. Then, he pulled the black-robed figure to the table. The black-robed figure hesitated for a moment and then picked up the large bowl. Sweeping Cloud Demon sneered, feeling his face rise. "So what if I killed your wife and son? Now you are just obediently begging for peace with me." He casually picked up the bowl of wine and said, "Be careful what you say in the future. If it weren't for the face of fellow Taoists here, I wouldn't have let you off so easily." The several people at the table secretly frowned. For better or worse, these were all golden cores, so these words were a bit excessive. If they provoked an accident then everyone would be in trouble. Luckily, the black-robed figure paused for a moment and then raised his head to drink the wine in his bowl. After a moment of peace, they couldn't help but feel a bit of contempt. This person was just too spineless. Sweeping Cloud Demon was even more pleased with himself. He wanted to drink some more wine so that others would know that he wasn't someone to be messed with. No one thought that the black-robed figure who had been swallowing his anger would suddenly attack at this time. His fist struck Sweeping Cloud Demon's body, sending him crashing into a round table and splashing juice everywhere. "I can't be friends with you. After this punch, our grudges are even." After throwing down these words, the black-robed figure broke through the window, vanishing without a trace in the blink of an eye. The demonic cultivators in the room curled their lips. Since he attacked then he shouldn't have run away so quickly. What sort of hero was he to not admit what he did? What sort of grudges were you talking about? How laughable. No, for better or worse Sweeping Cloud Demon was a 3rd-level golden core. Even if he was caught off guard and was punched, there shouldn't be no movement from him. As the several demonic golden core cultivators turned around, their complexions changed. Sweeping Cloud Demon's neck was twisted, he had long since died. A fellow covered in Yin energy was taking out a storage bag from his chest. "How dare you! Stop!" With angry roars, a powerful aura erupted. But the murderer didn't give them a chance to attack. With a strange laugh, he turned into black smoke and vanished. "This is bad, we've been fooled. They're together." The several demonic golden core cultivators reacted quickly. But when they rushed out of the restaurant, the black-robed figure was nowhere to be seen. "Chase after him. We cannot let him escape. With angry roars, several people rushed out of the city. A moment later, Qinyu emerged from not too far away from the restaurant. Although there were no fluctuations of demonic energy coming from his body, the infernal energy that surrounded him made one shiver with fear. This sort of infernal energy that could only be stained by recklessly slaughtering others made him seem more like a demonic cultivator than a demonic cultivator. He left the city safely. The demonic golden core cultivators that were chasing him had long since disappeared. Dozens of miles away from Billowing Wave City, a figure flew towards him. The billowing demonic energy around him revealed that he was a golden core. He was alone. Qinyu's thoughts stirred and he revealed a panicked expression. Stop! With a loud shout, the demonic cultivator blocked his way. It was one of the golden cores from the restaurant. His eyes were cold and gloomy. What are you afraid of? Qinyu shook his head again and again. If you don't tell me the truth, then just watch how I deal with you. The golden core demonic cultivator reached out a hand and Qinyu immediately flew towards him. But at this time, his heart shrank. He heard a calm voice in his ears, I'm afraid you will run away. Bang! A fist fell. There was a loud crackling sound of bones breaking. The demonic cultivator's chest caved in and he cried out for help. Black Sky Demon appeared behind him, casually twisting his neck in an exaggerated manner. He quickly plundered everything. Then, Qinyu put away Black Sky Demon and shot into the skies. A moment later, several golden core demonic cultivators arrived. As they saw their companion die on the spot, they stomped their feet in anger but didn't dare to chase after him. Soon, news of the Evil Star duo appearing in Billowing Wave City and killing 2 golden cores rapidly spread out. Sweeping Cloud Demon's death caused a great deal of anger and was viewed as a provocation to the entire demonic path. The high-level figures of the demonic path issued a strict order to kill Zhu Blue Cloud and that demonic cultivator no matter the cost. In a cave, Qinyu grasped the jade slip he obtained from Sweeping Cloud Demon's storage bag, his face full of smiles. To me, the blood escape art is simply tailor-made. This art stimulated the blood energy in one's body and used a secret technique to burn it, instantly increasing one's speed by 10 times. Qinyu had swallowed countless body transformation pills and his mortal body was tyrannical to begin with. Now that he had also refined the demon body, his blood energy had reached an inconceivable level. Sweeping Cloud Demon could use this art 3 times in a row at most before his mortal body reached its limit. But in Qinyu's hands, he could use it 30 times without a problem. Afterwards, with the blood escape art in his hands, unless a nascent soul personally chased after him, no one would be able to stop him. He would be able to freely enter and leave the battlefield and earning military merits would be much easier. After laying down an array disc to conceal his aura, Qinyu went into seclusion. After a month, he finally succeeded in refining the blood escape art. He flicked his sleeves and put away the array disc. Then, he stepped out of the cave and shot into the skies. In the next moment, blood-red flames ignited around him, increasing his speed by 10 times. He was like a meteor that shot into the horizon, vanishing from sight. The Southern Empire was located in a warm and humid region. The 4 seasons weren't too distinct and the forests here were lush and green all year round. The forest in front of him was only an extremely ordinary one. Suddenly, a deep rumbling sound echoed out and the earth gently trembled. If one were to look from high up in the air, they would discover that deep within the forest, a vast expanse of emptiness had appeared. Countless trees were uprooted and twisted into powder. The surrounding 3,000 feet seemed to have been plowed through countless times. Cracks spread out everywhere, leaving no place intact. A massive number of wild beasts cried out in pain as they fled into the distance. Qinyu knocked away a wild dog that was panicking. As it crashed into him, his chest shook and he spat out a mouthful of blood, his complexion extremely ugly. Beside him, half of Black Sky Demon's body had been blown apart. Luckily, he wasn't a life form, so he could recover after recuperating in the soul-burying flag for a period of time. If it weren't for Black Sky Demon blocking in front of him and Qin Yu using the blood escape art to avoid him, he feared he would have been dragged into the explosion by that Golden Core Realm demonic cultivator. Even the demon body wouldn't have been able to withstand the bombardment of a Golden Core exploding. Thinking of this, Qin Yu's heart chilled. He never imagined that this demonic cultivator would explode his Golden Core without any regard for his soul. Putting away Black Sky Demon, Qin Yu swallowed several pills and turned to leave. His thoughts raced. This matter was definitely unusual. Half a month later, Qin Yu borrowed Black Sky Demon's hand and learned that the high-level figures of the demonic path had issued a kill order for him. He knew he couldn't continue hunting them. These high-level demonic cultivators had clearly gone mad. If several of them surrounded him and blew themselves up at the same time, he wouldn't be able to escape. When he rescued Zhu Blue Cloud, he had killed 2 in a sneak attack. In Billowing Wave City, he had killed Sweeping Cloud Demon and another unlucky fellow. In addition to this ruthless character that had blown himself up, 15 demonic path Golden Core cultivators had died under Qin Yu's hands. Although he was still a bit short of exchanging for the Sky Thunder Bamboo, safety came first. There would always be a chance for him to earn military merits. Qin Yu left as soon as he said he would. After crossing 30,000 miles in 10 days, he quietly returned to Canyon Dwell City. Here, the righteous and demonic paths were intertwined. Canyon Dwell City relied on its geographical advantage to withstand the fierce attacks of the demonic path several times. Only at this step did the various factions of the Southern Empire finally gain a firm foothold. After the initial panic, they began to steadily stabilize themselves. Qin Yu took out his identity card and tied it to his waist. After a strict inspection to determine that there was nothing wrong with it, he was allowed to enter the city. Without delay, he flew straight to the Alliance Station. Although it was extremely difficult to exchange for the Sky Thunder Bamboo, there was still a chance that someone else would obtain it first. Battle stage. As the war calmed down and the hearts of the Alliance settled, many cultivators had gathered here. 2 Foundation establishment cultivators were fiercely fighting on the stage, drawing cheers from the audience. Suddenly, there was a loud bang. The sword-wielding cultivator was knocked off the stage and forced back several steps. Although he hadn't been injured, his complexion was still ugly. He coldly snorted and turned to leave, nearly crashing into the person behind him. His heart pounded. "Don't you have eyes? Get out of my way." Just as he was about to push him away, he froze. The area around the battle stage was incomparably silent. Countless people stared at him with wide eyes, as if they had seen a ghost. The sword cultivator's heart shrank and his face paled. He wasn't stupid, so he naturally noticed that something was wrong. But this person in front of him was only at the 6th level of Foundation establishment. Could he have some great status? As he was thinking this, figures flashed in front of him. 7 or 8 cultivators rushed forwards and bowed. "Greetings, Lord Ning Qin." Ning Qin, the cultivator froze. Chapter 43. More and more people bowed, soon submerging Qin Yu's figure. Although they couldn't see him, the sword cultivators were still dripping with sweat. To instantly crush a golden core, the Kong family's Foundation establishment exalted was undoubtedly the hottest topic in Canyon Dwell City. Although he had not been here for long, he had heard of it countless times. Thinking of it, the sword cultivator almost cried. Qin Yu didn't think that after several months, there would still be people who recognized him. These people greeted him with smiles and respectful words, so he could only nod in return. Those that caught his eye were all pleasantly surprised. They thought that perhaps Lord Ningqin felt that their talent was good and wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to take him as their master. Sensing everyone's eyes flicker, Qin Yu didn't give them a chance to speak. He directly said, "I have some matters to attend to. You can all draw back." Everyone was greatly disappointed, but they did not dare to disobey and hurriedly retreated to the side. This retreat exposed the stiff figure of the swordsman. Many of them looked at him with admiration. "You're awesome, kid." This person's face turned even paler, and he was sweating profusely. Qin Yu stepped forwards, passing by them and heading straight for the Alliance encampment. There was no awkwardness, no stare, just like that. Everyone was startled, a look of admiration on their faces. They thought that Lord Ningqin was truly worthy of being called Lord Ningqin. He had a broad mind and was efficient in handling matters. If he didn't want to make things difficult for them, he simply walked away without a single word of advice. Thinking back to that day when he had broken into Han Beishan's divine ability, grabbed his throat, and then jumped off the high platform, he felt that his entire body was filled with a refreshing energy. Lord Ningqin is simply the idol of my generation. In the merit department, there were several cultivators exchanging, inspecting identity cards, converting merit points, issuing certificates, and so on. They were incredibly busy. Suddenly, outside the merit department's great hall, a large purple bell began to ring. The deep ringing of the bell was supported by an invisible strength. It spread out in the blink of an eye, covering the entire Canyon-Dwell city. This was a merit bell specially refined by the Cultivator Alliance in order to strengthen their sense of honor. When someone who had killed a golden core demonic cultivator came to the merit hall, the bell would automatically ring and alert the entire city. Everyone in the merit service hall turned to look at the entrance, awe in their eyes. If someone could kill a demonic golden core, then that person must be a great figure of the Alliance. Right at this moment, another bell rang out. Everyone's expressions changed again. This lord had actually killed 2 golden core demonic cultivators. But soon after, the bell tolled a 3rd time, then a 4th, a 5th, dong dong dong, the bell rang out incessantly, enveloping the entire city. Countless cultivators were stunned as they looked towards the Alliance's encampment. Was the merit service bell broken? On the fighting platform, the numerous Foundation establishment cultivators that had gathered together to discuss how to capture Lord Ningqin listened to the ringing bells. Their expressions changed from respectful, shocked to expressionless, and finally, cursing in a low voice. The Hall of Merit is too outrageous. They can even mess around with the Great Bell. An old experienced Foundation establishment cultivator said angrily, drawing a wave of agreement. Suddenly, another person said, "Say, do you think this is Lord Ningqin?" The scene suddenly became silent. Everyone was shocked by this sentence and subconsciously refuted it in their hearts. Impossible, right? That means he has killed more than 10 demonic path golden cores. Lord Ningqin is strong, but he isn't strong to such an abnormal degree. Yes, there must be a mistake. Lord Ningqin must have gotten lucky. He must be very surprised right now. Everyone's complexions gradually calmed down. Their eyes subconsciously looked towards the entrance of the Alliance's encampment. For some reason, as they thought back to how Qin Yu instantly killed Han Beiqing, they felt an inexplicable weakness in their hearts. Could it really be him? After the bell tolled more than 10 times, several merit department cultivators flushed red. One of the female cultivators stood up. "I will inform the Lord to repair it." She couldn't wait any longer, otherwise the merit department's face would be thoroughly lost. She hurried away. Just as she was about to step out of the hall, she suddenly froze in place. She stared at the scene in front of her, the great merit service bell glowed with a brilliant purple light, and the vast and majestic bell tolls constantly reverberated outwards. Beneath the great bell, a black-robed cultivator frowned. He looked at the great bell with a puzzled expression. The female cultivator only saw the side of his face. Although he looked ordinary, there was an inexplicable attraction to him. Her face blushed red as she looked at him. 6th level of foundation establishment. She relaxed a little. But as she thought about why she relaxed, she couldn't help but blush even more. With a bit of panic, she said, "Hey there, hurry up and move away. The bell is broken so it won't hit you." In her heart, she thought that Qin Yu was the main culprit behind the bell's chaos. She didn't know whether it was funny or angry. Qin Yu revealed a look of understanding. No wonder the great bell had tolled on its own as soon as he arrived. He smiled and gestured for her to take several steps forwards. He cupped his hands together and said, "Thank you for the reminder, fellow Taoist." At this time, the great bell stopped tolling 15 times. Looking at his face, it couldn't be any more ordinary. But, what the hell was that intense attraction? The female cultivator felt her face catch fire. She lowered her head and said, "What are you doing here?" Just as she spoke, her body stiffened. What else could he have come to the merit department for? These words were just too stupid. Qin Yu looked at the nervous and clumsy female cultivator in front of him with a smile. His mind that had been taut for several months relaxed a little and he revealed a light smile. "I came to look up the rest of the 100 treasure list." Seeing that he didn't seem to notice her, the female cultivator relaxed a little. But just as she looked up, she was blinded by his smile. By the time she regained her composure, a young cultivator from the merit department had already begun to receive him. She glared at the youth in disappointment, blaming him for meddling in other people's business. She wanted to move closer but was afraid it would be too obvious, so she stood to the side and listened. As for informing the Lord to repair the merit service bell, it had already recovered. Qin Yu asked for the newest 100 treasure list. The battlefields of the righteous and demonic paths were vast and the Alliance branch divisions were located in every city. All of them had the authority to exchange for treasures, so if he wanted to determine whether or not the Sky Thunder bamboo was present, this was the most accurate place to find out. The youth in front of him had a faint hostility on his face. Qin Yu was surprised. But as he thought back to the dizzy female cultivator just now, he smiled inwardly and probed the jade slip with his divine sense. The 10th place was the Sky Thunder bamboo. Luckily, no one had taken it first. Qin Yu smiled. The youth's complexion became increasingly ugly. This was because he couldn't help but admit that although this boy looked ordinary, his smile was far too attractive. For a grown man to smile so beautifully, he definitely wasn't anything good. "Is there anything else?" "We are very busy." His stiff words revealed a bit of lack of confidence. This was the typical hormonal behavior of a young man. Qin Yu smiled. He laid down the jade slip and prepared to leave. The female cultivator anxiously glared at the youth again. She blushed and said, he was a bit impatient because he was busy. "I hope fellow Taoist doesn't blame him." Qin Yu shook his head. "It's understandable." His casual attitude and the magnanimity he inadvertently revealed caused the female cultivator's heart to beat even faster. She hurriedly tossed out a topic she had already thought of. "Fellow Taoist, did you come to confirm that the item you desire is still on the 100 treasure list?" There was no harm in revealing this. Qin Yu smiled and nodded. The female cultivator let out a breath of relief. She hurriedly said, "In truth, fellow Taoist can use a portion of your military merit points to reserve a treasure on the 100 treasure list. After you reserve it, even if someone takes out more military merit points to reserve it or exchange for it, we will notify you ahead of time and reserve it for 7 days." Qin Yu's eyes brightened. There's such a thing. Then I would like to reserve it. The youth already found him displeasing to the eye. He coldly snorted. A treasure on the 100 treasure list requires at least 30% of the marked price to reserve it. The higher the ranking, the more merit points are needed. It's best to calculate it first so you don't lose face. The female cultivator clenched her teeth. Shut up. She looked at him with a bit of worry. With my authority, the most I can do is reduce the amount of merit points you need to pay by 10%. If the difference is too great, there's nothing I can do. The youth felt his chest tighten and tears nearly flowed down his cheeks. Big sister, aren't you just showing off your affection for me? Isn't that too naked? As for me, what should I do? Chin-yu smiled. He refused. It's fine. I have enough merit points. Please help me reserve the 10th place on the 100 treasure list. The female cultivator's heart skipped a beat. If he could gather enough merit points to exchange for a treasure on the 100 treasure list so quickly, he must have some skill. Her voice became increasingly gentle. All right. I will immediately reserve the 10th place on the 100 treasure list for you. She turned and beckoned, Shan, hurry and bring me the reservation book. Seeing her close friend's stunned expression, the female cultivator stamped her feet. She angrily said, What are you doing? Hurry and bring it over. The youth coldly sneered. Sky Thunder Bamboo. Fellow Daoist, are you sure you aren't mistaken or are you intentionally causing trouble in the merit department? That's right. Chin-yu lightly said, What I want to reserve is the 10th place on the 100 treasure list, the Sky Thunder Bamboo. Everyone in the merit department had strange expressions. Chin-yu's earnest expression left them unsure whether to laugh or to cry. A mere 6th level foundation establishment cultivator, he actually dared to open his mouth. The youth laughed. Do you know how many merit points are needed to exchange for the Sky Thunder Bamboo? Do you know that up until now, there hasn't been a single person who has reserved or exchanged for a top 10 treasure on the 100 treasure list? Do you know how high the heavens are and how deep the earth is? He was excited. This person was far too stupid. In order to show off, he would resort to any means necessary. With such a good opportunity, he had to seize it and reveal his true colors in front of junior apprentice sister Zi Qiong. He took a deep breath, waiting for Chin-yu to feel ashamed or refute him. But what he received was disregard. Chin-yu took out his status card. He said to the female cultivator, I'll have to trouble you to reserve it for me. Zi Qiong was startled. You really want to reserve the Sky Thunder Bamboo? Chin-yu nodded. Yes. The youth angrily jumped out. He grabbed the status card and said, Let me help you convert your merit points first. I want to see just what sort of confidence you have that makes you so arrogant. Several exchange cultivators looked at Chin-yu with admiration. They thought that this brat was willing to go all out in order to chase after a woman. But, even if his determination was strong enough, his methods were terrible. They feared that he would end up losing all face and losing all face. Zi Qiong bit her lips. She wanted to stop him so that he wouldn't make a fool of himself, but she couldn't find a reason. She couldn't help but glare at him. This fellow, can't he see what I'm thinking? He actually wants to use such a method to attract my attention. What do you do now? You're going to lose face. Zi Qiong looked at Chin-yu. As she saw that he was still as calm and collected as before, she didn't feel any disgust or disgust. Rather, she thought it was quite interesting. This fellow's skin was really thick, he was actually acting as if nothing had happened. Could it be that he wanted to use this method to make her remember him? Thinking of this, her face blushed red and her heart tightened. What if he asks me to meet him in secret? Should I agree, or should I agree? Wouldn't that be too unreserved? Her mother said that men were fickle and fickle. If they obtained something too easily, they wouldn't cherish it. A cry of alarm interrupted Ziqiang's thoughts. She looked up in panic, like a little animal that had been caught stealing food. Across from her, besides Qin Yu, everyone else's eyes were wide open, their expressions a mess. Her heart shrank. She slowly turned around and saw that the merit point stone in front of the youth was glowing with a deep purple light. It was so noble and luxurious that it left one in awe. Hashtag. I was wondering why I didn't receive any monthly votes or tips today. I even forgot to update. What a sin. You're tuning in to the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.